honestly stayed quiet about everything for a while just because of like, who the fuck is gonna believe me? He's a good guy. He's fantastic. Like, I'll give you the full rundown on everything. Like, it's never been anything genuine. It's whatever Mike's gonna say to get what Mike wants.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are all having a wonderful evening tonight. Tonight, we are going to be going over some videos, having a good time discussing one of the longer, worst videos that I've seen in a long time. So, originally, this stream was going to be on like anti-consumerism type stuff, because of course Thanksgiving is tomorrow. I hope you are all going to have a great time with families, extended families. Pro tip, don't invite your drunk uncle to come to Thanksgiving dinner and do his thing. Or if you do invite your drunk uncle, please live stream it. I think that would be the best for everyone. But tonight, audio clipping, audio is choppy. Uh-oh. Is it too loud or too quiet? Uh-oh. I did check audio. My bad. Is that too loud or too quiet? Clipping. Pop, pop, pop. Oh, no. How far down does it need to go? Is that better? We will be like, hey, no. Did somebody actually unplug something? Oh, no. Oh, no. My uncle's name is Matt. Can you guys still hear me? Too loud. I dropped it down quite a bit. Hello? Clipping at the high end. Too much gain. It's really low right now. I lowered it quite a bit, so let me know. Not this Matt. Different one. Different Matt. Is it still bad? Hello? Still bad? It's okay now? Trench Grenade says it's okay now. Unbelievable. I lost 3 minutes of stream. It's kind of choppy. It's actually popping. Okay. Did I fix it? Hello. Bill pop sounds. It's clipping on the high frequencies. It's the mic cord connection. I unplugged everything. Hello. Because I have it in my headphones right here, and it sounds fine to me. Still chopping. It's better, but still there. No. Hello. No. Bad? Or did it fix it? No. Sounds better, but still wonky. Gosh dang it. All right. Let's see. What do I do? I unplugged everything and plugged them back in. 1 second. Hello. I mean, like... That was probably loud. I probably should have muted that beforehand. Better now. Fixed now. Fixed. All good. Sounds good now. Fixed. It's good. Oh, see, that's the problem, is the chat's like 30 seconds behind. So, is it good? You're going to want a refund. You haven't bought anything. You can't get a refund on something you haven't bought. Fixed? Better? Better? Quiet? Hot? Loud? No, it's fine now. Sounds good. LMAO, you're good. All right. I don't know. Okay. Where was I? This was originally supposed to be a stream covering overly consumer gun slop, specifically a video by TFB TV, the one on the Magpul / Zev abomination. That video was horrible. It was sent to me by a bunch of different people. Very, very bad. So that was originally going to be the point of this stream tonight. Kind of ties in with the Thanksgiving. Spend time with your family. Black Friday shenanigans, you know, the overly consumerism crap that you're seeing right now. Every year you get the same guys. Even what's their faces? Dirty Civilian did like a holiday buyer's guide video, which is like just an excuse to sell your affiliate codes, right? That sort of stuff. So it was going to be pointing out a bunch of those types. But someone gifted us another opportunity to talk about something. So there was all this talk, which is good. Talk is good, about gear guys versus competition guys versus, you know, reviewers are the bad guys in this situation and whatnot. And, you know, gatekeeping coming from different individuals, let's say, some of which I hope to have back on the channel shortly. But that kind of conversation, there were so many different things and aspects to get into it that it would be difficult to line all of them up together. Fortunately, by making one of the worst videos I've seen in a while, Autonomous Defense has lined them all up for us. So not only do I get to respond to a video, but I also get to go through all these points kind of one by one. So today's stream, post audio fixes, is it's going to be a video response to a long video. Now, a word on Colton, who is the guy who runs Autonomous Defense, their YouTube channel, and he's also a competition shooter. That's most of his thing, which you'll pick that up very soon in the video, is that I have talked to him before. I've actually bought stuff from him as well, so we've talked on and off for a little while. I talked to him after I watched the video. I think I told him that either the video was bad or something like that. But anyways, I asked him to come on the channel tonight so that we could watch it together and go through it, because I think that would be fun to have that kind of adversarial back and forth, talking about somebody else's piece and kind of get to the bottom of some of the ideas that he's talking about, right? To have that in a live format, I think would be good. But unfortunately, he's traveling for Thanksgiving, so I hope he's having safe travels, and I hope he is, going to have a good time. He said he would watch this later, so he might have a follow-up, maybe adjust some of his positions, maybe double down, who knows? But it was a great video, so I thought that it would be good to watch with some of you guys and get your guys' thoughts on this whole thing. So I did ask for permission to to respond to his video on stream. I don't need permission, but every now and again I can play nice. So now, to be forewarned, let me pull this up. This is a 40-minute long video that I sped up to about 33. So this is a very, very long video. I don't intend on being done anytime soon tonight. So exactly, primary and secondary coming in with the hot jokes. How would Colton feel if he did not eat breakfast this morning? Well, you know what? He's going to have a great Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow. So we'll ask him tomorrow how he feels. All right, let's see. Pedigree in the chat. Exactly. Prestige versus pedigree. All right. Yeah. Now, what you're seeing here is my edit of his video, right? Because I need to kind of blur it a little bit and throw some extra junk on screen so that my channel doesn't get taken down, because you're not supposed to be touching guns on a live stream, right? You can show gun clips, but every now and again, the AI will not know if it's you actually physically handling guns or if you're just simply watching somebody do it in a video. So it might look a little funky, but hopefully the audio is there. So now let's go ahead and listen to the audio and see if you guys can hear it. Another point against Colton is that, another case against Colton is that the audio on his YouTube video was so low that in my editor, I had to bump it almost all the way. I only have 30 dB of gain in DaVinci, and I think I ended up having to use like 25 to get it to good levels. So, you know, a point against the video itself before we actually get into the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about.
I'm gonna go ahead and say this now. This is probably going to be one of those videos where you want to play it in the background and listen while you do something else, because for the most part, it's me giving my opinion about stuff, and there might be a bit of rambling that goes on in here. I've tried to clean it up and cut things as best I can, but, be advised. You're probably...
All right. That's kind of, he's just getting into the preface. He hasn't even gotten into the video, right? Is the audio good for you guys? Sounds great to me. Does it sound good to you guys? Uh-oh, did I lose everybody? Hello? Okay, no, we're still good. Okay, everything froze for a second, so I thought I actually did get cut down that fast, which would be very quick. Does the audio sound okay? Let's see. Chat's behind by about 15 to 30 seconds. A bit loud. Okay, good. That's good, because I can turn that down. That's easy. Go for 60. Just a bit loud, just a bit loud. He's a little loud. Okay, perfect. Let's go.
I'm going to do something instructive while this goes on. This video is going to be a little bit different than the last couple that I've put out, and I'm going to try and do all this in one take. This is like my 8th attempt trying to make it work.
This is a 40-minute long video. To retry it 8 times, like, ooh, buddy. That's a lot of time sitting there loading mags.
But I have a bunch of ammunition in front of me that I have to load up, and I figured maybe just talking about some stuff that's been going on in the shooting world and the YouTube space, and giving my opinion, perspective on it, might be of
still too loud. Okay, fine.
some value to someone, although I don't know who would really value it, because the audiences of YouTubers are pretty committed to their own beliefs, and most competition shooters already know a lot of the stuff I'm about to say.
All right, so regardless, there was a very important point in there that I was skipping over while trying to figure out all the audio stuff. It's got like 40 something. 49 should be fine. So yeah, put him at 50. Still loud, brother. Unbelievable. Still loud. He's at like 20. What are you guys talking about? I'll put him down to 20. Okay. Could you turn your mic up? Unbelievable. This is just audio issues for 15 minutes. Unbelievable. I don't want to go too loud on my mic. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Sounds good. Still way too hot. Bump it down 25%. Really? Jeez, that's crazy, guys. Because it sounds really good. Maybe my ears are shot. Go down to like 13, 16. See. But anyways, there's a good point in here. Or sorry, a bad point. A point I want to respond to. This is exactly why you don't touch audio. Ready?
Committed to their own beliefs, and most so my own perspective on it might be of some value to someone, although I don't know who would really value it, because the audiences of YouTubers are pretty committed to their own beliefs, and most competition shooters already know a lot of the stuff I'm about to say.
So the audiences of YouTubers, which is you guys, are already entrenched in your beliefs, but competition shooters, we already know this, right? It's the incredibly subtle, like just outright arrogance of being like, well, we're competition shooters, so we already understand what we're about to talk. I mean, we're so much better than those YouTube viewers. I mean, those guys, unbelievable. They shouldn't even speak, to be honest, which we'll get to that later on. So that's his first point. Great.
But regardless, I don't have a whole lot to do other than load these mags, so I might as well just put this out there. So there was a thing recently with Matt Pranka, Brass Facts, Hop, on a not on a podcast, but on a live stream with Focus Trip. And it got pretty funny pretty fast. Matt basically disrespected Brass and Hop to their face about what it is that they are and what they do.
Incorrectly. To be clear, Matt doesn't know who Hop and Brass Facts were. Honestly, after he woke up, he might still not know who those people are, right?
And it was kind of interesting because although he was a little bit belligerent, well, maybe a lot belligerent and intoxicated, and really going at it pretty aggressively, I think he was actually really correct in a lot of the things he said and in the way he said it and why he said it.
I think he literally just contradicted himself there because he said he was too aggressive or something, and then he agrees with everything that he says. So I think he just contradicted himself there. But
and none of these people actually knew each other. Brass and Hop don't actually know anything about Pranka. There's a lot of things that they clearly didn't know about him, like who he has and hasn't trained, which if you follow Pranka, you'll know how few civilians he actually does train.
which is a point against, right? Because that was one of the things that they brought up in the stream, or that was just brought up in general, was that Matt doesn't really have a lot of time to train civilians. He has trained civilians. So when he said that he doesn't, that was actually a misspeak by Matt. Matt has trained civilians, but he is so busy with other work, let's say, that he doesn't have the time to, right? Which, not having the time to do certain things is very acceptable. But, we'll get to that just a little bit later on.
And he, of course, definitely didn't know anything about them, because why would he? And the heart of the point he was trying to make, I think, is very correct. And I guess I'm going to try and elaborate on that sort of thing, because I kind of feel like Brassfax's video talking about the situation after the fact still kind of misses some, I would say, valuable points about the whole thing. And it's kind of this, right? As civilians, as dudes that never served in the military, went and did cool shit, as dudes that don't go do cool shit for law enforcement, or are part of teams of guys that are in actually dangerous places doing dangerous things, there isn't a whole lot that we can contribute to truly understanding and using a lot of equipment that is out.
All right. So within that statement, he destroyed his own argument, right? Because he's going to say that people who haven't done cool stuff, who don't do cool stuff, can't really give their opinions on gear. Well, then if you, sir, Colton, have not also done those things, you can't tell people like me and others that our opinions are worthless, right? Because you also haven't done those things, right? He's going to walk back and forth over this point, but I'm going to disagree with the point entirely. 100%, 1,000%. Because the gear that the military industrial complex uses, gets built and tested stateside 99% of the time, right? It goes through, a lot of the times, rigorous, sometimes rigged evaluation processes. They test all sorts of different stuff in different ways to see how it all bogs down, how it all boils out, right? Exactly, right? So Coke Man coming in said, if you haven't actually killed someone with a gun, then you have no room to tell anyone anything about self-defense, LMFAO. Yeah, it's that sort of attitude, which is going to be very rampant within this video. Basically, if you don't have the pedigree or history, you can't talk about stuff, which Matt himself does not say. He disagrees with that. He'll go back and forth on it when he's drunk, but he disagrees with that as well. I don't give a damn about your pedigree. And then goes on to discuss his pedigree, right?
Out there. What we can do is compete, though. And the thing...
You know what else we can do? We can go out into the woods for 3 days and test gear and shoot thousands and thousands of rounds and use things for hundreds of hours. Or you can go put 2 holes in a paper target at 20 yards over and over again, right? Which is also very useful. I mean, there are some elements of this video that I think are good, right? Like, you can go to a competition. You can absolutely do well in that, and that is valid. That is cool. It is great to be good at something. Fantastic. I think that is also useful. I think when someone like Ben Stoger talks about using a handgun for 10,000 rounds, right, and using it in competition, that's really good information. That's fantastic. When Brassfax does something for 100 hours up in the mountains of Utah and he's talking about how a specific piece of gear worked for him, also great. Fantastic, right? 2 different data points for us to consider. Because what's funny is Ben Stoger isn't going to do the Brassfax thing, and Brassfax isn't going to do the Ben Stoger thing, right? So some of the stuff is if I was going to give Ben Stoger, I don't know, any piece of like random gear, like a chest rig or something, and he had to give me like his thoughts on it, I would actually probably trust Brassfax more because he has more experience in that type of stuff than Ben Steger, right? And I think I've said Stoger and Steger, but we know who it is.
About USPSA, IPSC, PCSL, the thing about competition sports when it comes to handguns and rifle shooting is they've always been ahead of everyone else that's out there. Most military and most law enforcement training is very outdated, and a lot of it is just due to political stuff and people not wanting to change things and people not wanting to be held to certain standards, or them not even having the budget to do so because of perhaps corruption or something else. So there's always been like competition shooters, some of which are retired military, some of which are retired law enforcement. And for some fucking reason, no one likes to talk about that when they talk about how competition shooters don't know shit or it'll get you killed in the streets.
Competition shooting is great for the hard skills, as Matt Prinka says, right? And it's not really even the competition that does it, which I think we'll get into this a little bit later on. It is the practice, right? It's the 10,000 reps before you get to the competition. That's what's actually important, right?
No one talks about all the retired military and law enforcement guys that are also absolute fucking hitters when it comes to competition stuff. And the thing is, competition shooting, if you're actually trying to win and you truly understand all the different rules and all the penalties and how everything it is recorded, it is an incredibly fair and incredibly useful tool to maximize your performance and your skill and to motivate you to get better.
I think that is actually the best use case for competition style shooting. It is a good way to test yourself against other people and to see how your practice has been paying off, right? And I think it is a good tool for a lot of people. Absolutely. Now, we wish we could probably fix some things with some of these competitions and how they're handled and whatnot. But I think that in isolation, competition can be a good way to hang out with other gun dudes, see what other people are doing, you know, to practice what you've actually, or to put into application what you've been practicing. For that sort of thing, I think competition is actually great and has a good place. So we'll talk about that more later on. But yeah, I think competition is actually good. I think it's fantastic. Just like most other things, if you can compete in it against other people, you have a higher likelihood of getting better at it, right? Iron sharpens iron. So I think there is a lot good to shooting in competition. Yeah, Hop says, your foot went outside the box. You have been killed in the streets. Well, it is a game. We will talk about that a little bit as well. It's a game. You may say that we make content featuring guns, but you play a game featuring guns.
And it's a really big thing that people don't seem to understand about like USPSA and IPSC is most men need some sort of motivating factor for them to get up and truly do something. And to do something at the highest level, there needs to be a lot of motivation. Now, simply being able to own a handgun or own a rifle and want to protect your family, the bar of skill to do that incredibly vague thing is pretty low, right? But if you want to shoot GM, right, or you want to win your local matches, or you want to win major matches, or you want to be a national champion, the bar goes through the roof. And it takes so much time and effort and analyzing and blood and sweat to actually get to those levels. It takes so much time committed, and you have to so deeply understand shooting whatever platform of weapon you choose and how.
Yeah, El Gringo says comp shooters seem extremely arrogant and gay. Well, just a little bit. Brassfax says the first 6 minutes of this video aren't bad. Yeah, it gets significantly worse as it goes along. So we're barely through the opening. Barely through the opening. Yeah. And again, he is correct about that, right? So people getting together, competing to get better in a specific game, right? With a specific rule set that's hopefully applied equally to everybody. Great. Fantastic, right? That's awesome. All good. All good stuff there.
Your body works with shooting it. And the thing is, a lot of competition shooters have basically made our understanding of handgun shooting and rifle shooting, like they've completely flipped how we understood and how we looked at it. The thing is about like any reviews about any products regarding rifle equipment and like night vision equipment here in the States, I don't think any of it's of value to anyone.
Oof. He didn't make it to the 6 minute mark. He made it to 5:30. Ouch. Oof, that's rough. Anyways, so he's going to get into it, but he's going to talk about how Americans don't know how to shoot rifles or they don't understand how to shoot rifles, it's a very interesting thing, especially coming from a guy who only shoots pistols, right? Now, I know that he does have rifles and stuff like that. I actually bought one of his rifles off of him, but yeah, just some pretty wild takes that we're going to get into. So he's saying that there is no video review opinion piece on a rifle or night vision device of any value whatsoever. So I am sorry, Hop and Brassfax. You guys have to go home now. You're all done. Channel's been canceled. Colton said so. Randy reviews it, says, buy him an ATI Omni and let's see him get GM yet. Well, he's USPSA, not a 2-gunner or 3-gunner. But no, the round count required to get to GM, the ATI Omni would blow up. There's no other end for that gun other than to blow up. Yeah, the rifleman is literally an American concept. This man says some wild things, some very wild things. No, Nick, we're going to get into a disagreement here. He says, I agree with that, to be honest. If you want to buy nods and stuff, go for it, but it's completely useless. That's right. No one has ever used nods in the States for a real life scenario or natural disaster. Oh, wait. They have been used in natural disasters. They get used for hog hunting, for pest control, for all sorts of wonderful things. So maybe before you spend 10 grand on them, maybe you want to see if they're any good or not. And maybe some voices that are trustworthy in the community, maybe those are good for it. So no, I do not agree with that point. That is a horrible point.
Like anyone that has any review about any sort of SBR or mid-length or long-range setup, this optic, this laser device, these magazines, this muzzle device, this recoil system, this bolt system, I don't think any of it.
All right, so I want to back that up because you might have been listening and not watching, but there's a very important thing that happens in here when you're trying to give your opinion on gear and whatnot. Right, watch this.
Or long-range setup, this optic, this laser device, these magazines, this muzzle device, this recoil system, this bolt system.
He just drops the mag, right? When you're critiquing other people's content, other people's, like, your opinion's not valid and stuff. He's not even at 6 minutes yet. And then he drops the magazine during a reload. It's just not a good look, right? It's like maybe you should fix your own fundamentals before coming at everyone for some reason.
So I don't think any of it's of any actual value.
Yeah, of course. Joseph said NVGs and the National Guard at natural disasters. Yeah, exactly. They get used all of the time. If you have them, you actually end up using them quite a bit for different things.
Because here in the States, the only reason we understand shooting handguns and red dots so well is because of competition shooting. It is because of those.
There is the tiniest bit of truth in here is that the bleeding edge is usually at the top 1% of competition shooters, right? And those are the guys who kind of, quote unquote, push the meta forward. But to say that that's the only reason people understand guns, maybe it wouldn't be quite to the level that it is now, but I mean, people have been using them forever, right?
Dudes, and them going out and being contracted to train military groups and civilians and people. It is only because the winners of national matches and champions have decided to share what they did to reach those levels that we understand and we can get as good as we can with, like, handguns and red dots today. The only reason we understand how to shoot these things so fucking well is because of those, like, 1% of dudes that have taken it that far.
Yeah, and there is a point in there somewhere about the bleeding edge of competition shooters, like helping to push forward the meta and helping to see what people watch them, and then they can kind of try and emulate that, and it's kind of pushing it forward a little bit. There is something there, but the broad statement that the only reason we understand how to shoot handguns is from these people, I don't know if I 100% agree with that. Shadow Force PB says the benevolence. Exactly.
And it's only when those guys like that, they're that 1%, go and do this sort of thing, that it changes our perspective on it. I don't think anyone thought a Glock could truly be used as a competition gun until Brantley
That's just not true. There are grandmasters that have gotten their grandmasters with a Glock 26. So what he's saying is just wrong outright. It's like people didn't know how to shoot a Glock until Brantley started shooting a Glock. Is like, what are you talking about? What do you mean, sir?
Is like that. There are that 1% go and do this sort of thing that it changes our perspective on it. I don't think anyone thought a Glock could truly be used as a competition gun until Brantley came in 4th American and 7th overall, or 7th in carry optics at Carry Optics Nationals. I don't think anyone would have considered.
Tyler Farr says, you guys, he's 110% right. I'm going to sell my Nods Armors rifles to go buy a high point with a red dot. Exactly. Not even a red dot. 9-Hole Review says, as a competition shooter and gun tuber, it is confirmed. I am literally the worst. Josh, yeah, I know. The worst of both worlds. Unbelievable that you would touch gear and dare to talk about it. Unbelievable, sir.
Considered a Glock 17 a gun that you could take to that high of a level until a 24-year-old kid from Alabama went in there and made everyone look bad. Kyle Litzy winning overall for the IPSC rifle world shoot with his rifle setup and the components that he built for his gun. I think him and the other guys that were.
Yeah, exactly. Nick says the Glock thing is especially dumb because this guy knows Ben Stoker, and Ben won nationals with a stock Glock way before Brantley. I don't think it was a stock Glock, but I know what you mean. It's just a bad point in general. Like, people have been shooting Glocks in competitions for 20 years almost, right? It's like, what are you talking about? You're just wrong. The entire point is just wrong. Ooh, ouch. Actually, BK has a kind of a pointer. He says, wasn't the Glock used in those units with pedigree before the competition shooters? Ooh. Maybe the competition shooters didn't even come first in that.
On his team, like Joe Farwell, are like the only people that can actually teach or give advice about shooting a rifle and who truly understand.
The only people? Wow, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? That's like saying like Mario Andretti is the only person to give driving advice. What are you talking about? No, absolutely not. And in fact, sometimes the best of the best don't make good trainers. Sometimes the best of the best, aren't able to transfer those skills to other people, right? Which is why Bill Belichick may be one of the best coaches of all time. I don't care what he ever did on the field, if anything, right? The difference between high-level shooters, if they are able to transfer that knowledge to other people, that's fantastic. That's great, right? That's the best of both worlds right there. But it's not always going to be the case. So sometimes, you want your shooters to be good, of course. It helps. But it's not always super important. So, and his point is just wrong.
Him and the other guys that were on his team, like Joe Farwell, are like the only people that can actually teach or give advice about shooting a rifle and who truly understand shooting a rifle. Here in America, we don't have a lot of rifle competition. IPSC is something.
Well, so GB Guns asks, it's a good point. Dudes like this are so wrong and out of touch. Why do we even bother talking about him? The reason why is because all of this information was, because all this discussion was going on, right? Between competition shooters, between reviewers and whatnot, and both calling each other worthless, which isn't true. I think both have value in certain applications, of course. But this video is so bad, and it goes through all of the points so that we can kind of respond to them in a line. So it does the best of both worlds. I can make a video response to all of the points that someone is trying to make, and kind of go down them piece by piece. So I think it works great for that.
That's really big, and the rifle IPSC competitions are really big overseas, but here there isn't a lot of that. And it's really interesting when you listen to Kyle talk about when he started traveling and started seeing these parts that were being manufactured by competitors from other countries, because their parts were better, because they had spent more time trying to understand and make those guns work for them and work to the highest performance possible. And it's only because they were motivated by competition that they did those things.
So again, I completely disagree with his point about foreign rifles being better. There are cool foreign rifles for sure, and some dedicated competition setups, but competition setups in rifles and certain pistols are literally only good for competitions that they're designed for, right? So those do not apply to the average person. A review on or just a talking discussion on a basic AR-15 is way more relevant to the average person than talking about somebody's slicked up race gun, right? Tyler Fair, good point. Focus Trip isn't a professional pianist. Why does he have a keyboard? It's a good point. I should get rid of it.
Listen to Kyle talk about when he started traveling and started seeing these parts that were being manufactured by competitors from other countries because their parts were better, because they had spent more time trying to understand and make those guns work for them and work to the highest performance possible. And it's only because they were motivated by competition that they did those things. Because like, that's the private sector. That's people wanting to get better and wanting to improve things. A lot of the stuff that the military does comes down to what they think they might need, or a couple of things that they notice are going on in certain theaters of war. And there's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot of, how much is this going to cost for us to fucking make all this shit? How much do we actually care about our troops? What's the level of training that those guys even have to need these things? I think it was like the Future Weapons program that, I think it was around Vietnam. I could be completely wrong about that, where we were developing new types of weapons that basically a bunch of dudes in our military said they wanted this, and they contracted a bunch of people to start manufacturing things. And we ended up scrapping most of the future weapons, most of these really bizarre, interesting weapons, and we just threw magnification on the AR-15, and that became, I believe, the ACOG, right? That's how.
So talking about military testing for a minute, we all know, right? Military testing, some of it's great. Some of it produces excellent things like the AR-15 and whatnot. And some of it is really bad. Some of it doesn't work very well. You know, because I mean, what was the M14, which my dad was actually, he was a Marine during Vietnam, and he loves the M14, right? It's his baby. But in reality, it's just a mediocre rifle with the shortest service life out of anything, because it was built for the wrong theater, essentially, right? Wrong place to use it. But military testing and stuff like that is a dicey topic, right? Because they get so much wrong. There's so much corruption and whatnot. They almost always make the wrong decision in a lot of these cases. In a lot of cases.
That ended up being a thing. Like, the way they improved a weapon system was they just gave it magnification instead of doing bizarre things with the action or with the ammunition. So
Brantley is actually in the chat. How's your evening going, Brantley? We're reviewing the one from Autonomous Defense. It was a brass facts /hop response, labeled up at the top, so you guys can see that right there. That's actually the video.
The improvement and development of a lot of stuff, it isn't because of like military or because of law enforcement. It's because of civilian side dudes and dudes that are competing that are really breaking this thing down. So it's because of dudes that are going out and doing like all the performance and all the legwork that develop this stuff, and that we truly understand it. Their understanding, their reviews of the products, their perspective on things is of actual value, because they've put in a tremendous amount of legwork.
So this is another point where I disagree. Competition is great for refining your skill sets, all sorts of things. The practice that goes into it to get good, to understand movement, transitions, all of that. Fantastic. But it is a very, very isolated, narrow use case, right? I think it's great. I think most people, if you have the time, energy, and money to do so, you should, right? But I don't think that it's such a small window of what real life can look like a flat range with a bunch of paper targets, that the aspects of shooting the gun, fantastic. The application for it is much wider than what you get out of a competition, though.
To truly understand how it works, right? It was like what Pranka was talking about with, the guys that were around him in his circle. If they wanted to be better at driving, they sought out the best drivers in the world. It's like actual dudes that are competing, right? If they wanted to know how to climb mountains the best, they sought out the best mountaineers in the world. It isn't.
Correct. So he's very correct about that, right? So the military does seek out the best of the best, right? Because like Ben Sager says, when he was talking to, I was watching a live with him, Matt Pranka actually, Travis Haley, and then another guy on there. And then Ben Sager's like, listen, I just teach them how to shoot. That's what I do. I don't care about application. I don't care about tactics. I just teach them how to shoot the gun better, right? because that is what Ben is fantastic at, shooting the thing better. The application, the tactics, that's all somewhere else, right? Competition shooters, they can shoot the thing amazing, the best. That's why they're in competition. That's why they're grandmasters. That's why they're champions, right? Because they can perform the best in that very narrow window.
They didn't go to like other entities within our own government. They sought out professionals and people that have spent all their time working in just that one thing. And when it comes to like gear and equipment, whether that's night vision stuff, whether that's nylon gear, just optical systems and stuff that's out there, like there isn't dudes stateside running around doing stuff in plate carriers. I guess tactical games might be the one instance of guys walking around messing around with kit and still having to do a little bit of shooting, but
no, I mean, again, that's just not true. You have all sorts of brutality events. You have tactical events. You have all sorts of different things where you have like a heavy division where it's your plate carrier needs to weigh a certain amount and you do competition in your plate carrier. These events are probably more rare than like a standard USPA or hit factor, but they absolutely do exist. So his point about, they don't have competitions for this sort of thing to decide what's the best. They do, right? Harder to find, but they do.
Doing a lot of physically active stuff, because if you looked at the military for like nylon gear and stuff, they have a lot of stuff that's issued to them. Some dudes get to actually select and choose what it is that they want to run. But like we don't just look at the dudes that are like going active on deployments and getting sent out there to fight. And sometimes when they get deployed, they don't fight anyone. They don't deal with any sort of combat. They're just pulling security in certain places. And a lot of the time, those guys are just out there doing a job. Like they're not really like looking at everything that's going on and trying to break it down. And if they come back with a certain opinion or certain view of a product or a certain thing that they used, that could entirely just be independent of them. It's like when somebody says that you shouldn't base your kit off someone else because their kit is based off their mission or something that they are doing. And we really don't know what we're going to be doing here, stateside civilians in America.
Perfect. Excellent. So why wouldn't you seek out information on a wide variety of use cases, not just a competition scene, right? Right? Because who knows what the future brings, right? And so the idea of being preparedness, you can call it fantasy, you can call it LARPing, you can call it enthusiast, you can call it whatever you want, right? It's not going away. People are always going to be doing it, looking for what's the best, looking for what's new. And if people can give them good pointers on how it worked for them in certain situations and whatnot, if they can provide a useful data point, at the end of the day, that's probably the best most of us can do, right? And so just shutting down conversation and saying anything you say ever is worthless because you don't have a M next to your name, which coming soon, it's kind of worthless, right?
America. There isn't exactly any real reason to think that there's going to be a civil war or an all-out war or like another presidential coup or some crazy shit like that. There's no real reason to think that any of us are going to be in plate carriers fighting it out with other guys.
So I actually have a slight disagreement here with Trench as well. So I quit comp shooting. I quit. ... Comp shooting is only good for paper at close ranges. Need to calculate scores. Sorry, I can't read this at all. Comp shooting is only good for paper at close ranges to calculate scores against other competitors. None of this translates to the real world. Shooting is less than 1% of real combat. Cheers. I do think that it does translate to the real world, right? If you are a grandmaster shooter or a master shooter or even an A shooter, you are going to understand the fundamentals of shooting, right? So I think that does translate to the real world. Where you are correct in is that there is such a wider range of name your fantasy, basically, that just looking at only competition shooters and the gear that they use, which is only designed for that very narrow window, is kind of useless, right? So there's something in there that I disagree with, though, because I do think that if you have a very high level fundamental skill, the hard skills, as Matt Pranka would say, I do think that translates to the real world.
Stateside. So like, what review of a plate carrier does there really need to be? Because no one knows how we're going to be using any of this shit if we had to. So why would you listen to anyone's opinion of it? There's no real value in it.
My good sir, we are listening to your opinion on it. Sir.
So there's like Pranka even says, it's just kind of like consumerism. And it honestly is. Like, here's all this stuff about night vision equipment. Most dudes aren't spending enough time under nod and using these devices for it to be of any real value.
So again, I don't know if he's calling. It would help if people weren't being so general, if they were saying things specifically, because I agree, man, there is so much nonsense consumerism content out there. That's what this stream originally was going to be. I have somewhere, not up right now, but I have the TFB TV video on the new Zev Magpul thing, which is a horrible video. It was painful to watch. The comments on it, hilarious. But that's like a bad video. That's like no information, fluff piece, whatever you want to call it. Terrible, awful, obnoxious, right? So there is absolutely consumeristic content to call out, right? And I think, again, competition shooting absolutely has its place. Competition shooters, good people to listen to for various aspects of gear, guns, shooting tips, all that sort of stuff. Absolutely. But to dismiss everything else because it doesn't fit into your very narrow interests, right? Because this guy is a competition shooter. So for him, maybe a hop video on night vision doesn't apply, right? Because all he cares about is, getting more A-zone hits in a shorter time for USPSA, right? That's what he cares about.
There's also like really high-end night vision equipment that is not neutered. So it's like high power. It can actually like has proper output and stuff. And if you talk to a lot of guys that run laser devices and do stuff under nod, they will tell you that you don't really need the maximum output devices. So instead of buying like a PEC 15 that
Wait, so if you talk to people who own lots of different gear, they can give you good insights into it? Maybe that's useful. I don't know. Maybe that is useful. I agree with them. When you talk to somebody who owns a bunch of different gear, they can, in fact, give you good information. I agree with them. Fantastic.
In E4'd its way to you, fell off the back of a truck, you get something like a D-ball A3, right? Or you end up, somebody else will tell you, you got to get the D-ball that's got a LED-based illumination device built into it, and that thing glows red, and you can see it from the muzzle device at distance. So in a hypothetical situation, maybe you're shot because somebody can see an LED red glowing thing on you because maybe your opposition has night vision. Or maybe your opposition has thermal devices and all your night vision and all your night vision kit and all your training means absolutely fucking nothing.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's a good point. Anyways, maybe we should figure out like some thermals then. Maybe we should get into that sort of capability. So maybe some of these people have also done thermal videos that are very interesting and illuminating and can get people into the tech and give people a good understanding of it, right? So if you're saying night vision, worthless, that's garbage now. All that time you spent buying and looking up videos on that, waste of time, right? We're into thermals now. Well, it's like, well, you understand, we still have to buy the thermals. So what thermals do we buy? Oh, look, this guy spent 100 hours using this thing or 1,000 hours, or he's done XY hunt with them. Wow, that's really good information. That will help me make an informed decision. Thanks, you're right. I should look into thermals. Thanks, bro. Yeah, that was another... Brassfax says, I love how the competition man clearly knows nothing about night vision. Again, it maybe if he had watched some videos, he could have known something, right? Yeah, exactly. Illuminating, to say the least. Yeah. Because yeah, thermal is important, because I have a night vision device, right? I use it. I shoot it almost every week, and I certainly film with it every week. But thermal is a gap in my game, right? So maybe there is something thermal that I need to look into, whether a clip-on, whether a handheld, whether a rifle scope. There's lots of different things, and I got to figure out what I'm going to get into, right? So I'm going to turn to somebody who already has a lot of experience with them, and he's correct. You turn to people who have used a bunch of stuff, and you get some good information from them. I feel like that's a good idea.
Or maybe they have drones, because if we're being real...
Oh, that's amazing, because we're going to have some drone operators on the channel as well. Maybe there's some good information that we can get from people who know how to fly drones, not just crash them like me, right? That's it. We should look up drone videos and get into drone tech and stuff like that. Absolutely, I agree. We should expand our capabilities, sir.
That's a pretty dirty way to fight people guerrilla style right now. So like, there isn't a lot of reviews about gear and equipment that is in practice of value to anyone, and the people who are giving their opinions about why this stuff is useful or why you may want it, or the good and the bad, they're very...
So this is something we might as well get into this now. We'll take a quick break because there is something else that I want to get into. We'll take a quick break because Lance brings up a good point. And Lance was on with Hunter Constantine in a very good video that I know about those dudes, talked about those dudes. Good dudes. Go ahead and check out that video because that is a great training piece. So go watch it with Weekend Gunner and Hunter Constantine. But he says at Focus Trip, this dude's preconceptions are competitive shooters versus tactical gear queers, which do exist. There are gear people that it's just consumeristic nonsense, right? So this right behind me, right? This is a Knight SR-15. This bad boy, this is the cream of the crop, baby. I don't care. It's just another AR-15. It's a nice AR-15, but it's just another AR-15, right? There's no need to lose your cum, as Brass would say, over a piece of kit. Don't be a gear queer, right? Don't do that. And all this tactical shit is worthless because it doesn't fit on his USPSA belt, right? It's like the guy says talking about gear is lame, and it's like, wow, look at all this gear on him. You know, he's got headphones on with the neckband. He's got the camera on his hat. He's got all the holsters out. He's got his gun holster, and he's got his belt. And it's like, yeah, don't talk about gear, guys. And it's like, oh, well, what gear do you have? And it's like, oh, well, I guess I do have some stuff, right? And it's funny, if you go to his channel, he has a bunch of gear videos. So it's like, what are you trying to say, sir? But let's move on for just a moment, shall we? Let's see. Where did I put it? Here it is. Okay. So this is just something that I pulled up the other day, or today. I wrote this in about 15 minutes. So feel free to disagree with this and pick points apart, whatever you want. This is just kind of how I see it. So most people in America are level 1, right? They are aware of guns and gear through low-level propaganda. That's a video game, a movie, a Garand Thumb video, right? Extremely normie focused, which is fine. It's fine to have content like that because I think that does bring a lot of people into the industry, as long as they're not bad actors and or lying and or shills, you know, because those are the people I want to remove, right? I want to go after those people, not everyone. I feel like that's counterintuitive, and that's going to remove 95% of people from the audience, which we probably don't want to do. But that's kind of where most people are at. Number 2 is people who buy a gun, they buy a thing, and they have no proficiency whatsoever, right? Because they just bought it, right? Now, you don't want to stay at level 2. A lot of people are at level 2. I was at level 2. Everybody who gets higher up on the list was at one point somebody who got their first gun, who shot for the first time, didn't know anything. All they did was have gear, right? You move up the list, mostly in it for guns and gear, some proficiency. So I was probably number 3 for a very long time, where I kept on acquiring new gear and added on a little bit of skill set, a little here, a little there, but it was mostly just because I like to buy stuff, right? Which we should probably fight against that consumerism within ourselves as well. Buying stuff shouldn't be the focus, but it is fun. I get it, right? Number 4, gear is cool, but skills are cooler. This is kind of where we change into the more serious person. Gear is still cool. You still need certain things. And if you're going to go out and expand your capabilities with thermals, night vision, drones, what have you, people honestly reviewing that stuff, giving you the pros and cons, very important, right? Number 5, high proficiency. Gear is secondary. This is like where most people want to be, I would imagine, right? So it's where your skills can carry you through most environments and you have the gear, right? Because you've already gone through level 2, 3, 4, and you're now at 5. And level 6 is where you want to be, which is, of course, just the capable and prepared citizen. So it's a mixture of having the capability and being capable with it. Pretty simple. At least that's how I see it. Feel free to disagree. We'll get to some super chats. Josh for $2 says, another weenie with bread. He a corn dog. That's good. Thank you for the $2, sir. ST Yodelin Odin for $5 says, please ask Kochman how many people he's killed. Accidentally or intentionally? That's the real question. Bush for $1.99 says, Zach Hazard, which I think is that channel. I did actually go find it and subscribe to it. So if I can have him on the show, I would, you know. Curio Relic for $20. Thank you very much, sir. He says, a firefight is the last place you should want to be. Be the ambusher, not the ambushed. You can train all you want to, but if you walk into an ambush against a numerically superior force, your training isn't going to save you. METT, or MET. Well, that's called fantasy, sir, and we're not allowed to dabble in fantasy here, okay? You cannot prepare for anything that is not a flat range, otherwise that's fantasy. But I agree with your point. Thank you for the $20, sir. Greatly appreciate it. A stealth for $5 coming in saying, maybe we can figure out counters to things like thermal and drones if we own and talk about them amongst our fellows. Exactly. I think that's a great point. You know, own them, get good with them, understand their capabilities, limits, how to counter them as well, right? Because some of that stuff could be important. You never know. I'm just saying. All right, let's go ahead, get that out of there, and we will get back to the video now. We're 13 minutes in. We only have 20 minutes left to go.
Metrics for what is good and what is bad, I think, are deeply flawed. And I think this is something that is understood by people who shoot competitively and who actually take training extremely seriously.
Well, but those two groups are not exclusive, right? So again, it's the competition shooter. Those are the good people. Everybody else is the bad people. Right. We don't really need to discuss that. But people can never shoot competition and take their training very seriously. They can do it. They can do it, right? So it's not just competition shooters who take training seriously. Absolutely not. I would say if you're a high-level competition shooter, you absolutely take your training seriously. However, I've been to a lot of matches with people who probably shouldn't have been there, right? You know, who did not take their training seriously. So putting competition shooters above everybody else is like, I mean, maybe. I don't think so.
Is you find that for the most part, what you use does not actually fucking matter. If anything,
all right, take your gear off. Take your pouches off. Take whatever trigger you have on there off. Take your grip panels off. Take it all off. You know, I'll hand you a high point C9. Run the stages again, right? No mag carriers, no belt, no timer. Oh, wait, the timer matters. That's important. The holster matters. Yeah, of course. I mean, the mag pouches, of course, that's important. Well, actually, a gun does matter a little bit, I guess, right? It's like, no, please don't. Weekend Gunner, now Weekend Gunner is a competition shooter, but I think he's only a C class. Unbelievable. He'll make it someday. But he says, I wouldn't know what competition gear to buy if I didn't listen to gear reviewers like you, Brass, and Hop when I was getting into the sport. Well, I would listen to those other people maybe more than me, but yeah, exactly. Sometimes people just don't know what they don't know, right? And so it's like, oh, get into competition shooting. The gun doesn't matter. It's like, what gun? I don't have a gun yet. It's like, oh, okay, well, just buy a Glock. What Glock? There's this one that says 44. Is that good? No, please do not buy a Glock 44, right? So you can't even just say just buy a Glock. It's like, what one? A 43? What does the numbers mean? I don't know. If only there was somebody there to help them out.
The only thing that really matters is it reliable and is it light? That's for the...
He's going to contradict himself. He's going to contradict himself here about the light part anyways.
What you use does not actually fucking matter. If anything, the only thing that really matters is it reliable and is it light? That's for the most part it.
McManus, 85, has a very good question for 1999. Thank you, sir. He says, do you really want to get rid of low-level consumerism on YouTube, or would it perhaps be better to simply liken them to things like movies and video games, using them to bringing in level 1 types of people? So let me make my stance clear. Again, I might have misspoke earlier, but the level 1 style of content that's easy to get people into the scene so that we can kind of push them up the pipeline, that's great, right? Fantastic. So I actually don't have a problem 99%, well, I shouldn't say 99% of the time, like half the time with a lot of this content. However, I think a lot of those low-level influencer types end up being bad actors, liars, paid shills, right? So they're getting these people, these normies, into the market. They're lying to them. They're pushing them in bad directions. So I still want that style of content just done better, if that makes sense. So no, I don't want to get rid of, like, I'm not the type of guy that's like, get rid of all of them, throw them in a burn pit, and just forget about it. It's like, no, at some point, like Modern Warfare 2, I've talked about this before, playing Modern Warfare 2 in like 2010 is what got me into the ACR. Getting me into the ACR is what allowed me to buy like other guns, and then eventually attain the ACR and realize it was a terrible rifle, right? And I owned 4 of them. Don't do that. But that sort of low-level propaganda is actually good, right? So everybody has a negative connotation of propaganda, but there is absolutely positive propaganda out there. Things that positively influence things to do good things, right? There's moral propaganda, right? You should be kind to your neighbors so that X, Y, and Z happens, right? If you watch an uplifting movie, like let's say Lord of the Rings, right? Fantastic, best trilogy ever made. And you watch people sacrifice themselves. You watch people do heroic things. That is positive propaganda. I'm all for that sort of thing in the 2A space to kind of get people in here. Jedediah Williams for $5 says, in your opinion, how long does it take an average person to make it to level 6? And what's a good litmus test competition? See, that's the thing. Competition can be good because what he says about competition being a accurate way to measure yourself in a very narrow use case scenario is correct, right? Because if you are like an A class or higher shooter, you're good, right? You can figure it out, right? In a very narrow window. So I think that competition is great. Practicing is great. As for actual standards and litmus tests and stuff like that, that's a very broad topic. That's a stream in and of itself. To get from a normie who owns nothing like me, a poor college student starting out, to level 6, which I'm not anywhere near, I would say. I mean, a decade, 20 years, right? or be born rich and have all the time in the world to do the things you need to do. So quite a long time. Absolutely a long time. All right, let's keep moving this along. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
There isn't really anything. I don't think there's anything that anyone understands about rifle shooting in this country right now because we don't have rifle competition. If we had rifle
gotta listen to that again.
There isn't really anything. I don't think there's anything that anyone understands about rifle shooting in this country right now because we don't have rifle.
You guys could hear that though, right? I know I didn't have it on screen, but let me bring that back up. That was a painful sentence. Just we'll try it again.
There isn't really anything. I don't think there's anything that anyone understands about rifle shooting in this country right now because we don't have rifle competition. If we had rifle competition, you would see a massive change in parts and tooling and use of things.
I as someone who builds rifles, absolutely disagree with the idea that people know nothing about rifles. They don't know how to use them. I mean, do you know how to use a rifle? I don't. I can't figure it out, guys. I can't do it. So I hope that some foreigner comes in and brings us competition so that we can figure out how to make these things. Because listen, guys, it's been a long time since America has made a rifle. All right, bud. All right.
And in technique, and you would see massive improvements across the board. And I don't think 3-gun cuts it. Personally, I don't like PCSL 2-gun either because it breaks down the 2 different types of weapons that you could be using instead of focusing on the one. If something like PCSL 1-gun got way more popular, I think then you would be able to trust and listen to what people have to say and how they understand how to use things. And like, I'll give.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb, right? Only if a new type of competition got popular would you be able to even listen to somebody talk about how to use a rifle. I just, there is no higher level of disagreement I could possibly have, right? The idea that, now, what would actually happen? Let's say rifle competition was the biggest thing out there. I think you would see a slight meta change. I think you would see a slight change in technique at the upper levels, and I think you would see a slight shift in some builds and whatnot. We're talking very minute changes, right? It would not change overnight. You can't say that somebody name your grandmaster 3-gun shooter or whatnot. Jerry Mitchell, like, name any of these guys being like, sorry, sir, you don't know how to shoot a rifle. But if we had some of these other guys here, maybe they could show you. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Give you a really interesting example about how, what dudes say and how they understand kit doesn't really make sense. LPVOs, right? If you go and you try and look up anything about LPVO, you will find a massive rabbit hole of information and comparisons. And sometimes you have videos where you have a camera rigged up behind multiple different scopes showing you different lighting conditions, different times of day, parallax, differences of scope shadow. You can find all kinds of different metrics on how dudes look at LPVOs. You have drop tests.
That's so amazing. He's going through all these positive things, people being able to test different scopes, being able to show it off. Like, this is great. This is fantastic. This is what we should look for. Oh, it's amazing. I have all this information at my fingertips. But somehow this is a bad thing.
All kinds of stuff. And the thing is, as somebody who was looking to buy one, I went through that rabbit hole. I looked at all these things. I looked up all the data. I looked at the weights of everything. I listened to a lot of different people on YouTube's opinions about it. And what's interesting when people talk about what is good and what is bad, what is considered the best LPVO on the market is the Nightforce one, right? That one that is basically indestructible. It's all.
Again, he's talking as someone who has never used an LPVO, or at least not very many, right? And he is asserting that the Nightforce 1-8 ATACR is the best, right? Because it's, again, used by the military. And just being used by the military doesn't mean it's the best. It's certainly one of the most expensive, but it also has a different application than 3-gun competition or 2-gun competition, which we'll get into in just a second. But to be clear, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Also, like the most expensive one that's out there. The ATACR, I think. Like the ATACR is like the top tier of LPVOs on the market. It's also the most expensive one. And people talk about it's 1x and, it's reticle and the first focal plane and how useful that is over second focal plane, right? And the thing is, if you ignore all of that shit and you go and you look at, like, again, IPSC and PCSL, the most frequently used performance LPVO for speed and accuracy that has won multiple competitions under extreme stress out to pretty significant distances, to the point where wind becomes a problem. The most used LPVO has been the Vortex Razor 1-6 second focal plane.
Correct. Yes. And that is because when the only consideration is shooting as fast as possible, the Vortex Razor HD 1-6, fantastic scope, right? Good glass, fiber optic illumination, so you can use it like a reticle or like a red dot up close with very good 1x performance. And you can also crank that bad boy up to 6 and then shoot at 400 and 500 yards, which is most of these competitions really only go up to 400 or 500 yards, right? That is fantastic for competition shooters. So listen, Colton, if you're looking for the best LPVO for competition shooting, look at what the best competition shooters are using. However, most of us are not using them in a 2 or 3 gun environment. Most of us have a lot more things to consider. The military application has a lot of things with auto ranging and a lot of other very useful features. Sometimes LPVOs might actually be stretched out to long distance, say 700 or 800 yards, right? So while yes, the Vortex Razor HD 1-6 is fantastic, probably one of the best, at least top 3 for a 3-gun style competition most of the time, it does not mean that it is good for every other environment in which an LPVO could be deployed, right? Which is why you see other people using different scopes, but competition shooters using this one. It's almost like this scope is the best for competition and other scopes are good for other things. That's insane.
This LPVO is not talked about basically at all from any of these people that talk about rifle shooting and LPVOs.
No. You're mistaken. You're wrong. The reason why it is not talking about recently is because it's like a decade old. So all of those videos have been made and you can find them. I guarantee you they're there, sir. You can go and find hundreds of videos on the Vortex Razor HD Gen 2 1-6. You absolutely can. They exist. The reason we don't talk about it now is because that was 10 years ago, right? There's different styles of scopes, different things to look for, all sorts of different new things to talk about. Are they good or bad, right? The Vortex Razor HD, people have talked about it. They still use it, and they still talk about it just to a much lower level, right? It's like we don't talk about, let's see, what's something else that came out like a decade ago? You know, we don't talk about the Scar H as much. We really don't talk about it anymore, but people say it's the best battle rifle. It's like, well, it came out 20 years ago, and it's mediocre at a lot of things, right? It might be fantastic for a very specific role, but mediocre for a lot of things. Almost like the Vortex Razor HD Gen 2 1-6. I'm just saying. All right. Now we got to take a quick break because you guys are being incredibly generous tonight. Thank you so much for the support. You guys are absolutely ridiculous tonight. I genuinely appreciate it. So thank you. I am very thankful to each and every one of you watching. So, and I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving tomorrow, but hopefully tonight, some entertainment, some light discussion, and we move on. Gunslinger's Chivalry for $9.99 says, it's crazy that he mentions fantasy as still being possible, but suggests it's a better idea to have nothing but flat range if you get thrown from the frying pans of present to the fantasy fire. Well, it's always weird to me when gamers, which is fine, be a gamer. Gamer's fantastic. Go do your competition shooting. That's great. We'll talk about this later, but I'm going to be doing some more competition shooting. Competition shooting, that's great. That's fantastic. All of that, right? However, it's a game with guns. So you can call somebody else prepping for something fantasy, but you are also just playing a game that features guns. Big thumbs up to both. Right? Pretty simple. Nick for $10 says, the reality is the industry will die without consumerist behavior. It's already struggling and will struggle more as a result of Trump's victory. Without fear of a ban, nobody will panic buy. There is some truth to that for sure. I believe that there will be another Trump slump, depending how January goes. It always depends, right? Depending on how January goes, and depending on how Ukraine-Russia goes. Because if we end up sending even more arms overseas, then prices really won't fall as much because people will be able to manufacture stuff and send it overseas. So it kind of depends, right? But I do think there will be a Trump slump if everything cools down. But new product comes out, like even me, I'm coming out with new products, right? Eventually, not this year. Don't worry about it. But like cool little stuff like this, right? I'm coming out with new stuff. Don't worry about it. Right? Don't buy it unless you need it. Don't buy it at all. It's not coming out till next year, right? As of right now, I have some prototypes here. We can talk about that later. But yeah, buying things is not the problem. Making video things is not the problem. The people that I have a problem with are the liars, the people who steal from their audience, lie to their audience, come to bad conclusions even. Sometimes they'll come to the wrong conclusions, even if they're not being dishonest. You know, I do that, right? I'm wrong about a lot of things. I'm not lying to you, but I am wrong. I do things incorrectly and people call me out for it. You should have the moral fortitude to call me out, right? I should have the moral fortitude to listen and to take accountability when I do something wrong, right? Logan sucks at shooting for $50, sir. Thank you very much. That is greatly appreciated, sir. I hate when my fellow comp shooters act like this. It's not an either or of comp or tactical stuff. It's both. Without gear content, I wouldn't know what to get. I would probably be using some crapple. My gosh, I started combining words there. Sorry. I would probably be using some crappy Uncle Mike's holster instead of a Tenacor. Funny story is, when I started out, I had a Uncle Mike's inside the waistband holster for my Smith & Wesson SD9 VE that I bought after I shot a little bit because my brother had one, but I also watched Hop's video back when he had like 8,000 subs or something on the Smith & Wesson SD9 VE, and he talked positively about it. So I bought that gun. I hated it. So maybe Hop came to the bad conclusion on that gun. I'm actually seeing a pattern here now that I think about it. But I also had a Uncle Mike. So thank you very much for the $50, sir. That is greatly appreciated. And I agree 100%. Like competition shooting, great. Practicing, great. All of that sort of stuff, that's amazing. Fantastic. Right? I don't know why one side has to be the bad guy. I think it's a holistic mesh of all of us that are in here, right? At least for the time being. Grits Taste Good for $5 says, I like your level 1 to 6 idea. Would you, or convince someone with a better pedigree like Brass, make a dedicated video on it? I think Brass is more eloquent than I am, obviously, as you guys can tell by my stream of verbal diarrhea. Anybody who's more eloquent and more knowledgeable, like some of these guys, I think is really good. I agree with that. Sorry, I just saw this message pop up in the live chat. Let me grab this one. Where did it go? Get back here. No, you did back in the day. No, maybe it was the one before that. Maybe it was the Sigma. Maybe it was the Sigma, not the ST9V. Maybe I'm wrong about that. It was a long time ago, though. Where did it go? Where did it go? Unbelievable. I lost it. Gosh dang it. I can't find it anymore. Okay, there was a good comment in the live chat that I wanted to respond to, but it's gone now. But no, yeah, somebody could make a very good video on that. And thank you for the $5, sir. Bush for $4.99 says, this was my first YouTube donation. Thank you, sir. If I shit on Hop and Gear and say pedigree 3 times in the mirror, will you platform me, or do I need a pedigree? Well, honestly, if you can do those things, I will take that as a substitute for pedigree. So Hop for $5.56, of course. Nice. Thank you, sir. Says, remember, kids, if you don't know what your gear is called, you're cool. I guess, well, that's the funny thing, right? It's like military guys talking about gear. It's like, I bought all of the gear you ever used with my tax dollars. Everything you ever had was issued to you. Of course you don't care about gear. You never had a choice in the matter. Garrett Belknap for $1.99. Thank you, sir. He says he definitely has one of the opinions of all time. I agree. Jedediah Williams for $1.99 says, do these people just post without research? Well, so here's the thing. And I started out a YouTube channel. I said a lot of dumb things. I didn't edit what I said, right? And I used to just ramble, but now I do a script so that I try to be slightly less stupid when I talk, which is obviously you can see that come out in a live stream, right? How ineloquent I can be at times, right? So, but behind a script, I can be precise. So I can say what I mean to say and hopefully not get things wrong. But if I just stream for 40, 50, 60 minutes like this video is, like there's a lot of stuff that you should probably just cut out, right? And that's why you edit, right? Because you're putting out this content for people to watch. People are going to watch and pick it apart, like me. Just Some Space Cowboy for $5 says, clearly this man does not have 1,000 hours in Arma 3, and therefore his opinion is irrelevant. Well, I'll do you one better. If you do have 1,000 hours in Arma 3, your opinion is irrelevant, but for very, very different reasons. Jedediah Williams again for $4.99 says, thank you very much, sir. Says, I used to dislike your content when I first found, but now your content is growing on me. That's what we do around here, sir. You come here to hate at first, and then slowly but surely, you start sending me super chats, right? That's just how it goes. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir. And yeah, I mean, if my content comes off as aggressive to some people, which it does, and it should, sometimes you're going to be very upset when I say some bad things about a certain product or person you like, but hopefully my argumentation is good enough to win you over. Right? That's my hope anyways. Welp, nope, yep, for $5. Thank you very much, sir. He says, on the spirit of calling you out, your sponsor, Optics Planet, is well known for shady practices. You call out everyone else. Why not them? Optics Planet isn't a sponsor. I think I have an affiliate. I get what you mean, but I have an affiliate with them that I don't make anything on. So I think I'm actually just going to cancel that. I don't need it, right? I don't make anything off it, so I don't push it. I don't care. So Optics Planet does have problems shipping things to people, right? They do, 100%. And if you go back and you watch some of my videos from like 2 years ago when they actually sent me a product to review, I made a joke in that video during the sponsors section about them not being able to ship products on time. But no, I think that is a fair call up because they were really bad during the pandemic. And they have a tendency to not ship things on time and to have trouble canceling orders. So, no, I think that's a fair call up. I appreciate it. Brassfax for $5 says, do you smell toast? I always smell toast. That's my secret. How's your arm feeling? Sore, but only the right one. My Bush for $1.99, or My Bush, geez Louise. Bush for 199 says, my YouTube career starts tomorrow. There you go, sir. You can make it. If I can make it, anyone can, right? And Hunch, the Dirt Roofer, for a new membership. Thank you. I don't know why people, well, thank you for it, but I don't know. Memberships on YouTube seem weird to me. But my gosh, gentlemen, we are never going to make it through this video. We are right at the halfway point. Thank you again for the support, guys. It is, you guys are actually crazy.
The market. And the reason for it is because none of these dudes on YouTube that are reviewing this thing have put a significant amount of rounds through a rifle with this optic. And
that's, again, it's just, we're talking about the Vortex Razor HD Gen 2 1-6. It's just not true. It's just not true, right? People have. I mean, 9hole was just here. 9hole has multiple videos on the Vortex Razor HD 1-6, right? Of course they do. It is still a great optic, right? I think it's outclassed in certain areas by other optics, and for most people in a non-competition setting, you might want a little bit more complex of a reticle, but it's still a great optic. It's just not going to be talked about as much because it's 10 years old, and people do talk about it.
And the reason for it is because none of these dudes on YouTube that are reviewing this thing have put a significant amount of rounds through a rifle with this optic and had to do it in a setting that they themselves did not set up, right? Dudes who go to matches, they can't simulate things. They're being tested. Everything's being...
No. That's what your practice is on that flat range, sir. You are literally simulating a competition, right? You simulate different transitions, different movements, different target distances. That is literally what you are simulating right now in the footage you're providing.
Recorded, they're being watched, right? If they actually want to win, there's a lot of stress on them, and there's a lot of thinking and discipline that has to come into effect. And there's a lot of things that don't really fucking matter in the way that stuff actually gets used. Like if you listen to Kyle Litzy, Kyle uses a BDC reticle, which
Lyco says, for how many rounds is enough rounds to be taken seriously? $1,000, $2,000 in ammo, $0 in ammo. You know what? If you pull out a Razor HD Gen 2 1-6 and you lay it on a scale and you say, hey guys, this is 24 ounces. You've just given me valuable information that I can use as a consumer without shooting a single round.
which is considered the least accurate or least precise of the possible reticles that are out there, between like MOA and a mill style reticle. And
sorry,
people have the least things that don't really fucking matter in the way that stuff actually gets used. Like if you listen to Kyle Litzy, Kyle uses a BDC reticle, which is considered the least accurate or least precise of the possible reticles that are out there, between like MOA and a mill style reticle. And people have tried to argue with Kyle in the fact that he uses a BDC and call him stupid. Like,
no, if you call a competition shooter who wins matches and wins nationals stupid for doing a certain thing, you probably don't understand why he's doing it. Now, BDC versus mills versus MOA. BDC is fantastic because it's a ballistic drop calculator, right? If most of these guys are running, say, 16 to 18-inch guns, most of the time, there can be a little bit of variation in there, but most of the time, that's what lines up with a BDC. So if you're shooting at known distance targets, which most of these people are shooting at known distance targets, guess what, buddy? All you need is a BDC. You can use mills if you want to. I like mills. I like BDCs. For me, it's like I can use whatever they put in the optic, right? If I'm talking about preferences, I might go to something else, but using a BDC, perfectly fine. In fact, that ACOG on there right now that I've taken out to 500 yards multiple times has a BDC in it. That works just fine. It's perfect. Who cares? And if you're in a known distance shooting, you can use a BDC reticle and be very fast with it, because BDCs are fast because they're designed to be fast, which is why you would use one in a competition.
Precision rifle guys call him stupid. And the thing is, the fucking dude is beating everyone. He is winning. He's the best goddamn rifle shooter in the world right now.
But I thought we didn't know how to shoot a rifle. That's what you said like 5 minutes ago, because we don't have real competition, but then he's the best in the world. So what are we supposed to do? Nobody's going to ever know how to shoot a rifle now. That's my takeaway from this video, is that we will actually never understand how to shoot a rifle. It's never going to happen.
So why would you listen to these other fucking people that don't actually compete and don't do these things? Because 0 to like...
You know why you would is because they have a wide variety or even a different variety of experiences, right? Because shooting on a flat range from 0 to 500 yards, 0 to 600 yards at most, is a good experience, right? But lots of other people have different experiences that may provide you, the end user, more value. Listen, if you are a competition shooter only, then you should only care about what competition shooters do, because that is how you are going to use the item. It just is, right? That's the only way you're going to use the item. If I'm only going to use a CZ Shadow 2 in competition, why would I watch somebody do a 2,000 round burn down in a duty scenario or something like that, right? I don't care. I'm using it for competition. The same thing, if I'm not using something for competition, right? Why would I care how somebody does with it in competition? Right? Just saying.
430, it works perfectly fucking fine. And if you understand the BDC, if you have your own data that you collect on it, which it's your equipment, it's your ammunition, it's your rifle, you should know how everything works. It's the fastest one on the market, and it's more than durable enough for matches, for shooting.
Ooh, he said it. He said it. It's more than durable enough for for matches. You're right, sir. But most of the time, or well, actually, yeah, I will say most of the time, most of us here especially are not only at matches, right? Jonathan Picone is in the chat. Hello, sir. Thank you for being here during this impromptu roasting session.
Your ammunition, it's your rifle. You should know how everything works. It's the fastest one on the market, and it's more than durable enough for matches, for shooting. And people will try and talk about the durability of certain things here and there because I guess they have this fantasy in their head that they're going to be catching fucking spall and shrapnel and bombs and all kinds of shit. And
maybe they're going to trip on a rock while hiking in Utah. Maybe when using these things in more austere environments, like right now, it is 16 degrees outside. Once this stream ends at like 3 hours from now, I'm going to go on a walk, right? So maybe I need to know how something performs in the cold, not just on a flat range. So maybe we do things that fit our personal use case, application, fantasy, if you will, and we look for something like that, not just the very narrow window of competition. And Clayco, yes, I would love to have that gentleman on. That would be a great talk. I can't talk.
They're going to be fine, and that first thing that's going to go is their fucking optic and not their limbs. And it's all fantasy. It's not based in anything. It's just hypotheticals that people run in their head.
Whatever you want to say to make yourself feel better, that's fine. It's fantasy. It's make-believe. You play a game, right? Well, we could throw these insults back at each other, right? I think the hypotheticals are important, are useful. I think the games are useful as well, right? Because sometimes knowing what's fast is good, right?
And unfortunately, that's really what this all comes down to, is you have hypotheticals and you have fantasy. And the realest thing that we can do as civilians, and it's also great for military and law enforcement, it's extremely good for them, is competition shooting. It's the one thing that we can use as a pretty fair metric for performance, for skill, and for actually...
For speed on a flat range. That is what it is, right? M26 says it's fantasy until it isn't, right? 100%. War is fantasy. Competition is for real. It is, the competition is fantastic for determining who and what is the fastest on a flat range.
Running equipment and seeing if it is reliable and if it can do the job. And the thing is, YouTubers and all these other people are just fucking allergic to competition. And it's really cool that like it's gotten way more well-known and way more...
I just kind of disagree with him. I think that most YouTubers don't do competitions. but most people don't do competitions. So the ratio of YouTubers doing competitions might actually be higher than the average person doing competitions. Now, let's get to me here, right? Because that's what this is about. I have decided in 2025 and whatnot, I'm going to shoot 20 to 30 matches over the next 12 months. I'm out of it, guys. I'm done. My brain is gone. This guy melted my brain. But anyway, so I'm going to be shooting 20 to 25 matches next year, and we'll see how it does. We'll see if it drastically changes my opinions about the rest of you peons who don't do competition. You guys won't even be allowed to speak to me once I get my placement, right? I hope I don't have that attitude. In fact, I hope I never have that attitude.
More popular, and there's way more of it talked about. You know, Pranka puts out a lot of stuff. Steger puts out a lot of stuff. PSTG and Joel Park, Kim, all those guys, Hunter Constantine, Brantley, Lucas, like all of these dudes put out.
Lucas doesn't do competition. Yeah, GB Gun says, allergic to competition. I spent 3 years in 3 gun before I started making videos. Yeah, it's like I've done competitions, right? I did them in Washington. It's probably been like 4 or 5 years since my last one. Been like 4 or 5 years since I've won. But it's been a while. And out here in South Dakota, the options are slim. So I have to drive to Nebraska or Minnesota. But guess what? I decided I'm going to do 20 to 25 matches next year and just suck up the drive time. Hop says, I assume these guys don't shoot comp. I mean, I haven't looked into it, but I assume, right? I think he's really only picking on you and Brass. I think he's just mad at you for some reason. Right. Lucas has started doing matches, I think. I know he did that sniper match, which is a rifle match that we don't have apparently. No. Lucas doesn't never shoot matches, but I don't think he's placed. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think he's even placed yet. So. Brassfax says, I like the assumption that me and Hop don't do comp. Guess those 11 I did don't count. In quotation marks, this year. Right. Again, he doesn't know, but he assumes that you don't, and he doesn't respect your opinion for it. How dare you talk about night vision instead of punching holes in paper faster, sir?
So much information right now that there is basically no point to ever attending a shooting class by anyone ever again. Because you don't.
Wait, what? Go back. What's it? Sorry, what did he say?
Stuff. PSTG and Joel Park, Kim, all those guys, Hunter Constantine, Brantley, Lucas, like all of these dudes put out so much information right now that there is basically no point to ever attending a shooting class by anyone ever again.
Right. Those guys that you mentioned, though, the last time I checked, they don't have a review of the new laser speed LAM out there. So I guess we'll never know. I guess nobody out there has done a video on that might be elucidating on its illumination performance. You know, because that's the thing. Listen, Ben Steger, I watch a lot of his videos, right? When he talks about a gun, I love it. Fantastic. Great information from this snarky gentleman, right? Fantastic. I love it. I enjoy it. But he doesn't get to review everything, right? He doesn't get to shoot 10,000 rounds through everything. At most, even if he shoots 150,000 rounds a year, he's only going to do 10,000 through like 4 or 5 different guns, maybe. And so maybe there's this other gun or this other item or this other optic that I'm interested in that one of these top shooters isn't making content on. Now, to be clear, I love it when top shooters make content. I think that's fantastic. I think it's great, right? I wish a lot of these top tier guys actually did do more content and do more things, right? Because I think their opinions are valid because they are great shooters and they have great insights, right? But a lot of them don't. A lot of them are much more content just to practice, shoot matches, win gold, take a training class, and call it a day. It's very, very rare that we get top-level shooters making content and making good content. Now, why is Lucas Botkin on the thumbnail? And that is because there is one more thing that we need to get to right here. Ready? So on the topic of T-Rex arms and Brantley as well, Brantley is a fantastic shooter. Lucas, who I talk with not regularly, but fairly regularly, he is putting his money where his mouth is. So he is like, all this gear queer, all of this review content, it's kind of been this content churn, this mill of slop. And I think we need to refocus and do things more focused on training, more focused on hard skills. So guess what? Lucas hires Brantley and creates an entirely new channel dedicated to training. So Lucas is one of the few guys actually putting his money where his mouth is and creating something new and useful for you guys, right? And for me as well, because you can see I've watched some of these videos. But it's good stuff, right? Fantastic. I am glad that this content exists. I'm very happy that it does, because again, not a lot of top tier shooters are putting out good informational content. Most of them don't do anything. A few of them do a little. And a few of them actually put their money where their mouth is, right? Which is why I do appreciate Lucas starting a dedicated training channel with a dedicated, like, national level shooter with Brantley, right? And Lucas is in there as well, of course. All right. Unfortunately, we are back to the video.
Because you don't need it. There's more than enough free information that if you apply yourself and you actually want it, you will have better skill and better performance than basically everyone else. And I think Brantley kind of proved that point better than anyone. And the reviews of people who have never put in that sort of discipline are, for the most part, worthless.
I mean, how much more do I need to say? It's like you're saying that these people's opinions are worthless because they haven't put in the effort, but you don't know what effort level they've put in. Right? You're just saying that they haven't.
They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know why their metrics are flawed because they've not pursued this thing or done this thing.
Because they haven't just done competition shooting, they don't know how it performs in competition shooting. Like, you are correct on a level, right? If I don't do competition shooting, I don't know how XYZ performs in a competition setting, right? I can kind of imagine, because if I'm like, oh, well, this shoots really well in my training, I think this would be good for competition, because competition is kind of proof of your training, right? Essentially, it's a check, right? Are these things that you've been practicing for the last however many rounds actually working out in application in a timed setting, right? But we could still talk about everything else not dealing with competition. All right, we'll take a quick break for a second because GB Guns needs to go grab another beer. Welp Nope Yep for $5 says, you knew I'd give you another 5 for actually letting me change your mind. 4D chess. That's right. I'm one step above and behind. However that goes. Delaware X for $10. Thank you very much, sir. He says, I thought with the progression of the internet, boomer gun slop would fade away. Bro vets and tactical elitists are serving themselves while bashing humble creators for making comparison videos. Like, I guess. But it's weird to be talked down to by, I don't want to be mean, I guess, but like by people who aren't really even better than you are, right? So it's like, if you're a top tier shooter and you're telling me that I'm like, need to improve, I'm like, yeah, you're right. But if you're like, you know, dropping magazines on reloads and talking to me about how my opinion is invalid, I'm like, maybe, bud, maybe. Logan Sucks at Shooting is a new member. Thank you very much, sir. Greatly appreciated. I don't know what that means, but thank you. Nick Frolini for, oh my gosh. Nick Frolini for $4.99 says, Colton just needs a hug from Hop. I agree. A Hop from Hug is said to cure cancer. So just throwing that out there next time you see him. GB Guns for $5 says, we need intermissions for those of us that need to go grab another drink. Well, go get that drink, sir, because we are ready to rumble.
And it's just wild to me that they don't. Maybe it's a locality thing where they don't have a lot of competitions around them. But honestly, I find that as an excuse because I don't have a lot of money. I'm basically fucking nobody. I am very realistically considering being the dude that directs the PCSL matches here where I live, because
that's great. That's fantastic, right? You're making a personal sacrifice. Oh, he is here. Oh, fantastic. I haven't seen him in the chat. If he is in the chat, fantastic. But that's fantastic. If you are putting in your own personal time and effort to run matches, to do the things that you want to do, to be the change, so to speak, fantastic. Good to go. Autonomous Defense is here. I hope you're having a good night, sir, because we're having a roast in your honor. Autonomous Defense says, I need to clarify the things I was saying and actually go into significantly more detail. I should have scripted this instead of going off the dome. And that is, as we talked about earlier, that is the advantage. That is the advantage of scripting, is you can be precise. When you ramble and you say a lot of wacky things, people can call you out for it, right? So I 100% agree. If you want to make valid points, I would try to script, right? Not everybody needs a script. Some people can go off the dome and be very, very eloquent in the way that they speak and convey their concepts and whatnot. I can't, so. All right, we continue. We only have 12 minutes left.
Not a lot of rifle competition. There's not a lot of motivation for dudes to want to shoot rifle. And if I build it for them, they will come and they will get better, and it will attract more people and it will become more popular. This is something Tony Mazza is doing in Florida. Like, we have to be the ones to create the matches to bring the people in. It will make everyone better, and it keeps everything a lot more interesting. And personally, I'm taking the shooting and the competition stuff so seriously right now that I'm not touching rifle at all. I'm not spending the money on rifle ammo. It's all going to 9mm. And in the last,
so again, like, some of this stuff is great, right? So you're doing the things that you want to do, get more people into competition, all great. But when you admit that you're not shooting rifles at all and then telling other people that they don't know how to shoot a rifle, like, maybe you're just talking about yourself, right? Maybe leave the rest of us out of this.
Like 4 months, I've probably fired 7,000 rounds through a Glock 17. And I've probably done 3 times as much dry fire for every round fired, if not significantly more than that. And like, I'm taking it as far as I can go. I'm putting aside money that I could spend on rifle gear because it still interests me. And I am looking at travel costs. I'm looking at hotels. I'm looking at flights. I'm looking at the costs of these major matches.
So this is kind of a point against competition, right? So competition is a great check for your skills, right? However, if you spend $10,000 getting to matches, that's $10,000 that you didn't spend on training, that you didn't spend on other things, right? Because that's a lot of ammo, right? A couple flights is like months worth of ammo. So, I mean, talking about being efficient, going to every competition possible, probably not the greatest idea. Going to one every month, a couple every month, if you can, if they're local, if it's easy for you to go to, fantastic. Like, I know some people do them every week, right? Because they're like, it's right down the road. Why wouldn't I go and spend $60 in ammo and an entry fee to do a match? For that, fantastic. But if you're having to travel for stuff, whatnot, it is not efficient to just spend all of your time going to matches rather than practicing. The practicing is what's actually important. The competition is just a check.
I'm going to have to take time off of work. So now it's not even just in my own local area, people can see me do bad and see my performance, and that motivates me and stresses me out to become a better shooter. Now it's like actual major matches and national matches, and I'm doing it solely to get better. Like, the opinions of people that go and do those sorts of things, that take it as far as possible, are infinitely more valuable than anything some fucking YouTuber says.
Oof. Ouch. I'm insulted. But what are you saying there? There's that level of correctness, right? It's like, I do competition, so only people that do competition are of interest to me. It's like, well, yeah, of course. You're a competition shooter. That's all you care about. That's all you want to do. A YouTuber's review of something else doesn't involve you. This doesn't, right? If all you care about is competition. There's some argument in the chat about if he said $7,000 rounds a day, a month, or a year. I think it was in a month, which is a lot. 7,000 in a month is a lot. Or did he say in a year? 7,000 in a year is not that much. I'm not a competition shooter, and I shoot more than that.
Because for the most part, YouTubers, from what I can tell, it's just a hobby.
Hey, RGT, I want to have you on the show at some point because you're a high volume shooter, and I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on this. And I also appreciate your work as well. Also, the new photo looks good. Moving on.
They are enthusiasts, as Pranka has said. They're just people that are having fun and enjoy what they do. The thing is,
again, they use this term as like an insult. Like, you're just an enthusiast. It's like, correct. I am enthusiastic, passionate about what I do. Correct. Thank you. They use it as like a negative thing. It's like, you're not doing it in a real world circumstance. You're not doing it at a gaming match like I am. You're not as good as me. It's like, I don't know, man. That kind of take it's going to push away a lot of people that you're supposedly trying to help.
So they will fucking argue with you about stuff. Like, they know what they're talking about, or that their reasoning or that their logic makes sense. Right? A lot of people would say that the SRO is a very fragile optic, and because of how fragile it is, it's kind of a piece of shit. Well, I've, at this point, dropped my SRO 4 times, and one of those times I ate shit straight on the concrete and it didn't break. There are some dudes that have SROs that look like they were, ACOGs that got caught in a bomb blast, and they don't have any of the black ionizing left on it. It's just straight aluminum shining, and those optics still work, right? And then you look at something like the Acro that is supposed to be more durable and is better, and those fucking...
Now, on this we agree, right? The Acro, by all accounts, the Acro is just not a sight worth buying at its current price, right? It has a tendency to do things that you don't like for being a $600-700 optic, right? And the Trijicon SRO is kind of a gamer dot, right? Big window, looks nice, it's good for that. Is it as durable as other optics? Probably not, but is it durable enough to get you through the flat range if you trip? Probably.
Things break out the gate. Like, for the most part, the opinions about all this stuff is irrelevant. And if you look into why this is, on Instagram, you can find a lot of these high-level competition shooters, and you can stalk them, basically, to learn how they do things and try and mimic them. And they hand out a lot of free information, which is very generous, I would say.
Yes, I agree. It is good that pro-level shooters give out free information. I'll shout out Ben Steger again, because I was watching one of his training classes, which he has on his YouTube channel. So if you want to watch a Ben Steger training class, he has them up on his channel, and you can dry fire along with them. And that's what I did for one of his classes. Fantastic. Lots of good information, lots of good fundamentals, and you can just watch it on your screen, dry fire along with it, kill an hour and a half, and you're good to go. I think that's a fantastic resource that some of these competition shooters put out.
On YouTube, those same competition shooters, they might have a max of like 5,000 subscribers. A lot of dudes that are around me that are GMs, including Brantley, if you look them up on YouTube, they have like a maybe 4,000 to 5,000 subscribers, maybe even less than that. People go to YouTube and they go to gun shit on YouTube for entertainment. And it's weird because with the amount of money and time that all these people end up putting into this stuff, they act as if it's not for entertainment. They act like they're taking it way more seriously than they really are. And it's just not the case.
Well, I do love that you assigned our intentions to every single YouTuber out there. I personally appreciate you telling us what we think. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. But some of us do take things a little bit more seriously. There is absolutely so much review slop out there, right? Where it's like, this product does this, and here's like some basic specs, and we're out of here, guys. And it's like, well, was that a review or a marketing piece, right? And that's the kind of content that I like to call out. So if you're going to be more specific about it, heck yeah, lots of bad content out there. Now, YouTube being for entertainment is mostly true, right? There's some people who take it more seriously, but by and large, it's entertainment. Hey, I have 8 minutes on my break. I'm going to watch a video and try and get something out of it, right? That's about it. Training content is much more difficult to condense into a few minutes, right? which is why like a training class or something like that might be several hours long. But the average person on YouTube is not going to have 2 hours to sit there and stare at a video, right? Probably not. So that's why review content does a lot better because of the platform that it's on and because of the investment level of people, right? To go to a training class, you're probably in the top 5% of shooters to begin with, right? In terms of investment, maybe not in terms of pure skill, but in terms of investment, if you're going to a training class, you're probably in the top 5% of people. If you're seeking out that type of content online, you're probably also in the top 5%, right? 95% of people come to YouTube for information and entertainment. It is not a fantastic source for training. You can find some really good stuff, but it is very minimal. And again, kudos to T-Rex Arms. He built a dedicated training channel, hired a fantastic world-class shooter, and put him up there to be like, hey guys, you guys want good training content? Here you go. I'm paying for it all, right? Fantastic. Good to go. And I agree. I would love to see more of these high-quality shooters actually be able to convey their information in a high-quality way, right? Review content has been boiled down, has been refined to like, you can, out of an 8 to a 12-minute video, you can get about 90 to 95% of what you need. And if you need additional information, there are another dozen YouTubers who have also done an 8 to 15 to 20-minute video, whatever it happens to be, right? To get like, become a master level shooter, we're talking about hundreds and thousands of hours. So it's a completely different type of person. It's a completely different investment level. And YouTube is not the perfect medium for that, which is why review content does better than just pure training content. 100%.
And partially the reason why this stuff is like less known, even though it again has gotten better over time, is Instagram is incredibly like, it throttles anyone that posts anything about gun stuff. Like there's a lot of incredibly good handgun shooters and rifle shooters that no one will ever know who they are. All you have to do is look up matches and look up the leaderboard and look at who's at the top. I guarantee you, most matches you won't know the top 10 guys. You will have never fucking heard of them because they're just dudes. They're just blue collar guys or guys that maybe work for a department somewhere, the one guy in that entire department. And they decided to go and start doing matches and they got super good. And no one will ever know who they are because they don't want to be big fucking YouTubers. They don't see the value.
So in a way, that is almost part of the problem is like, again, sometimes competition shooters, good competition shooters, are not the best type of people to convey that information, right? There are a lot of people who can be fantastic at something, yet not have the verbal, visual, audio skills to convey that information well. And again, some of these guys, they do just want to shoot a match and go home and be a good shooter, right? So there's a reason why this content isn't popular on YouTube. I think that if more people get into it, which is what, again, we're seeing some people get into it, it will become more popular and push more towards the surface, but it's never going to be as popular as what YouTube is good for. YouTube is not as good for training. It's better for information. It's better for entertainment. For actual hard skills transfer, YouTube is a hard place, right? It's like a book. A book can be great information on certain things. Transferring like shooting skills from a book, like Ben Steger's written some books, which is like this much writing and then like this much drills, right? It's a tool, but it's not the best tool for it. Nothing is ever going to replace actually getting out there and using it.
You in it. They have their own money from doing whatever job they have outside of the.
Well, so GB Gun says, back to the thing, if you're really training or really competing, you're not interrupting it by filming. Again, so if you want to film high quality training content, it's like, well, I need a cameraman and an editor, right? So now my competition shooting, which is already expensive, gets even more expensive, right? Which is why you see it pop up less frequently, right? Because it's more involved, and right, and it's difficult for performance-oriented guys sometimes to orient their thoughts in a way that makes sense to the average person. It's a very rare combination to get both of those things together.
internet, and they go and they competition shoot because they want to fucking win and because they want to be the best one. The opinions of those dudes are worth their weight in gold because it's honest. There's nothing as far, I mean, sometimes there are sponsors that back competition.
This is a terrible point. It's like, they're honest. There's no money involved in competitions, guys. There's not sponsored shooters, is there? It's like you see a guy switch from Smith & Wesson to SIG, or SIG to Smith & Wesson, and suddenly their recommendations changed based upon who's paying them. That's never happened with competition shooters. What are you? They're honest. They're not, there's no money involved.
Those dudes are worth their weight in gold because it's honest. There's nothing as far, I mean, sometimes there are sponsors that back competition shooters, which again, even though I am speaking very highly of competition shooters, you have to understand that there are people that pretend to be competition shooters. There are people that pretend and take money and try and be honest in the competition world. Just like YouTube, I would probably say to a lesser extent, because it's like more obvious when they're doing it. But with the way that everything is recorded and everything is structured, it's pretty easy to pick up on those sorts of things. You can't lie when you have a year-long record of whether or not you've been performing well or whether or not you've been bombing on things. And those guys are the ones that actually understand kit. They're the guys that actually understand gear. They're the
No, they don't. That's the problem. You see, because the competition shooters is so focused on competition gear and kit. Like, look at yourself in this video. You have a competition holster and you have very exposed, very easy to grab magazine holsters, right? That are designed for competition. So you cannot tell me that a competition shooter knows what it's like to wear a plate carrier for 24 hours, right? Because they don't do that. Why would they ever do that? That's not their skill set. So no, competition shooters do not know more about gear and kit. They know more about a very specific type of gear and kit, right?
The ones that actually know how to use these things. And everything else on YouTube, all this other shit, a lot of stuff Dirty Civilian pushes out there with like the e-bikes and different sorts of prepping stuff and survival stuff, uniform things. All of this shit is fucking fantasy. You don't need any of it.
I mean, oh gosh, then I'm not going to talk about the need argument, right? Because the need argument is probably the... Delta 34 says he had a comp shooter lose his mags at my match. Well, I mean, you know, the gear sometimes fails you and he didn't know what type of gear to buy. But anyways, the need argument is incredibly dangerous, right? Because it's like, you don't need a car, you don't need X, you don't need Y, you don't need Z, right? All you need is a Glock 17 and a Serpa holster that my granddad used. It's like, I don't think so, right? And the need argument just doesn't hold any water. I think it's just anytime you say you don't need something, you need to look at how that argument is structured and what you're actually trying to say, right? Because it's like, oh, civilians shouldn't own body armor. You don't need that. You don't need plate carriers. You don't need that. You don't need chest rigs. You don't need that. Hydration systems. What's that? Generators? Never heard of them. It's all fantasy, bro. Let me play my game. We're the serious guys. The government will take... It does run down to that argument. If you boil the need argument far enough down, it goes to some wacky places.
You don't need a single bit of it whatsoever. It's just cool shit and gadgets. People don't...
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what to say. Like, you can... There are some things that are cool, right? Do you need a Knight's SR-15? No, you don't need that, right? You know, a basic BCM will get you through, right? Or even cheaper rifles will get you through. Yeah. Yeah, GB Guns has a good point about the e-bike stuff. I also got these emails, so I know what you're talking about. GB Guns says the e-bike wave was for affiliate sales. I had a pitch a week for months from all those Chinese e-bike companies offering big bucks if I push their bikes. Yep. I remember that. I remember getting all those emails, and it's like, I'm not going to talk about a bike, like an e-bike. That's lame. And then you see other people doing it, and you're like, oh, you fell for it. You fell for it, sir. Okay, so autonomous, he comes in with a better argument, right? I'm not saying need from a place of shouldn't, but from a place your money is better spent on other things, as if someone is trying to sell you this. That is a much better argument, right? Because we can talk about what's bad money, what's good money, what for what application. Because listen, if I told you you need to spend 10 grand on going to all these different competitions, but I'm like, well, actually, you could be way more prepared for 10 grand, right? And still practice a crap ton and get very good and just kind of trim away some of the edges, right? That is a much better argument if you wanted to formulate that. Unfortunately, that's not the argument you formulated in this video. Just Some Space Cowboy came in for $10, says, once again, going to bring up all of the things that happened during the Hurricane Helene cleanup. There were where water filtration, radio communication, as well as dudes and armor pulling security were needed. That's the thing too, is a lot of these people are like, listen, guys, it's just fantasy. You don't need a generator. You don't need XYZ. You don't need comms, right? And then it's like, oh, survival, like natural disaster scenario. It turns out some of that gear would have been pretty helpful, right? I mean, we all saw the posts of people flying in generators, flying in food supplies, all of this stuff, people with radios trying to find people, right? These horrifying situations, which some of this gear might have helped. So it's not all fantasy. You can say a lot of it is, sure. But again, competition shooting is a game. It is a game with set rules and limits, which is fantastic for competition, but it is still a very narrow use case. Hurricane Helene says hello to your fantasy argument. That's right.
Don't know how to run their tools. They don't know how to shoot. They don't know how to train. They don't understand what it takes. And what's worse is they do not have the fucking motivation to go and do it, even after being called out for it. They will spend tens of thousands of dollars on gear and equipment and base a personality about gun shit and be so well known and popular. And none of them will fucking go do competition because for some people, it isn't fun. It's just.
I think there's an element there. There's something to work in there, right? About people being gear queers, right? Where we all know the guys who have way too much money to know what to do with, and they buy all the random stuff, and they don't know how to use all of it. You don't want to be that guy. That is super low down on the level on the pyramid system. You don't want to be that guy, right? You want to prioritize skills above gear because skill is more important than gear, but some gear is important, and we can discuss that, and that's what we like to do. Telling people, like, I'll use Brass again as an example because this video is a response to Brass. Brass shoots 25,000 rounds a year, 35,000 rounds a year. I think he shoots more than me because I only do maybe 20,000 rounds a year. I think he does more than I do. Somebody like Regular Guy Training who shoots 50 to 100K a year, right? You can't tell me that we don't invest our time and energy into testing this stuff out, because in fact, we test it out more than a lot of these other guys. Yeah. Well, so I agree with this point. So it might also express something. I'm referencing to a lot of behaviors and personalities that have been on YouTube over the years with this comment. It isn't exactly for Brass and Hop. You can say that, but the title is a Brass Hop response. So again, I want people to be specific, right? If I'm like, I'm just going to name somebody. Shoot, who's a good example of this that I can call out? Okay, Tim, Military Arms Channel, right? The most boring content ever. Absolutely useless outside of like some generic information. I can't stand watching it, right? Terrible stuff. If you're like, man, that guy just makes the most boring nothing burger content ever, I'm like, oh yeah, fantastic, excellent. But if you're like, man, YouTubers suck because none of them put in any effort, and I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? Like I just quit my jobs to do this full time. Like I don't know why I'm catching strays here, right? If you start punching everybody, surprise, surprise, some people start punching back, right? Just say it.
Just hard. So that's the thing with it, right? Like no matter what, those dudes won't go and they won't do competition no matter how much time passes. It doesn't.
Again, autonomous is talking about some specific. Hop says, "Hey, Aton, check your fire next time, biatch." IDF has entered the chat. Thank you, Hop, for sending dollar amounts in cool amounts. I appreciate that at least. Yeah, if just be more specific, right? Because I agree, if we talk about specific people, then we're like, yeah, heck yeah, we're on the same side. Let's get rid of these dudes. But when you start calling out everybody, I'm like,
interest them. Doing the hard thing that might actually teach them how to do stuff doesn't interest them. And what's weird is, like, if these guys go and they do a bit of training here and there, it's with some fucking schmuck that doesn't know jack shit. Some dude who used to do cool guy shit in the military.
Now, I think this point that he's getting into is really good. There are a lot of people that are absolutely not going to put in any effort. It is just the slop content. And then the training is for like celebrity trainers, right? So you go train with, like, I don't know, Tulam or whoever, Goobers or whoever it may be, right? Because it's sexy to post it on the gram and you're going to get lots of likes and it's going to look cool, right? And you're going to take pictures next to these cool dudes. And it's not actually for the training content. It's not actually to get better. It's a flex. It's a fashion statement. It's like taking a picture next to a generic celebrity and being like, wow, isn't this fun? You know? And it's like, but they haven't improved in 30 years of shooting somehow. Right? And again, if we're more specific, I mean, these examples fall into place a little better. All right, let's see here. We'll take a quick break for a second. Just some Space Cowboy for another $10. Oh, no, wait, no, we already see that one. Okay, yeah, but I agree with that. Yeah. All that sort of gear, queer stuff, actually important sometimes. Nick for $4.99 says, I've said it before and I'll say it again. This dude needs a hug from Hop. Well, maybe we can arrange that. Legion Armament for $10 says, hey man, I just watched your debate versus Tacticon. I understand where you're coming from, but it looked like you came at it with bad faith, gotchas, and just trying to stir the pot. Hope you do better. Yeah, no, I haven't really talked about that debate, but that debate did bad. Like, I did bad. My personal performance in that debate was bad. I think everybody coming out of that looked worse than they went going into it. So if you think that I looked bad in that, I agree with you. Yes, it was done bad. My research was bad. I spent way too much time on bad topics. I didn't even get to some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. So if you're saying, hey, John, you could have done way better, 100%. And that is, it's good to take the L in a smaller scenario, right? Versus, you know, because we're talking about like Chinese garbage, right? It's at the end of the day, it's like, it's not the most important thing in the world. It's important, but it's better to take the L there, learn, get better, focus up, no pun intended, and do better next time, right? So it is an important lesson to learn. And unfortunately, I had to lose live, right? So not as much fun to do it when you're the guy losing, which, again, Autonomous is the guy here, but I was the guy there. So we all do it.
Or as well known or as popular. Like, they go and they'll train with them and they'll learn tactics and tactical shit. And it's, again, just stuff that's based in fucking fantasy. And like, that's just the thing. Like, a lot of the time when you see these YouTubers finally go train with someone or take a class with someone, it's just some fucking schmuck that doesn't actually know how to shoot. It's not a performance-based guy. It's not a guy that's ever won anything. It's just some dude that used to do cool shit and kind of promotes that out there. And I guess some wide-eyed civilian that doesn't understand how any of this shit works and doesn't actually shoot a whole lot doesn't really understand the stuff. Because, you know, reviewing a product between like 5,000 and 7,000 rounds is one thing, but then you have competition shooters that are shooting Connex containers worth of ammunition. And it's like, when Brass Facts had to ask Pranka at what point would the opinions of people like him and Hop be of value to like these communities and these people, I think if you have to ask that question, you don't grasp how little you actually know.
Ooh, so that one was directed at Brass, right? So that was, you don't understand how little you don't know, right? Which is a interesting construction to a sentence. Yeah, I mean, I just disagree. So in that, Matt was very drunk. So I'm going to have Matt back on the show. I have a verbal agreement from Matt to come back on the show one-on-one, and we'll just talk about skills, hard training, and we'll have a great, lovely chat. But in that chat, he was drunk and he was not answering questions, right? Which is a big problem. So Brass was trying to intentionally ask him, like, okay, so you don't think my opinion is worthless because of X, Y, or Z? What is that criteria, right? Because he's trying to get at a very specific question, right? Brass is being nice by asking a drunk, belligerent man what his positions are. My opinion on that is that I don't have to ask you for anything, baby. I'm here whether you like it or not, right? Brass, however, again, he's a little bit more, I don't want to say cautious, but he's certainly a little bit more diplomatic. He picks his battles much better than some other people. And so he is trying to be very nice and get to the bottom of what Pranka means, talking about the pedigree versus I've been in a helmet since I was 17, but pedigree doesn't matter. I've shot 10,000 rounds through 10 different LPVOs and you've never shot one, when he doesn't even know what Brass or Hop do, right? That whole thing was a cluster, right, of everybody talking past each other. So that specific call out of Brass, I don't think so. I don't think so.
To like these communities and these people, I think if you have to ask that question, you don't grasp how little you actually know, because there's not a lot that I can talk about right now with like my guns and my equipment and my shooting. Like,
but if we go to the autonomous defense YouTube channel, there will be videos talking about gear and stuff like that, right? So I mean, like, you did though.
I guarantee you I'm better than most of these dudes. Like, just looking at what they do and what they understand, they're not even in the game, as it were.
That is a correct statement, at least for Brass, because Brass has, or at least not for Brass, because Brass has shot 11 matches this year, right? So Hop doesn't shoot matches. Hop doesn't think they're applicable to real world applications. So what a waste of time for him, right? That's his stance. Not my stance, but that's his stance. For me, I haven't shot a match in like 4 years, so I definitely do need to shoot more matches, right? And that's my plan for next year. But yeah, I mean, if the argument is I'm a better shooter than you, therefore your response doesn't matter, I would just pick out whatever I'm better at than you and tell you that your response or your opinion doesn't matter, right? Because I'd be like, well, I'm way better at PRS shooting than you are, so don't ever talk to me again, right? If we're just going on like that goes back to the pedigree argument, right? Because now it's like, I've done this thing and you haven't, therefore don't talk to me. It's like Trench Grenade. Trench Grenade was in the military for 13 years or something, right? And he's like, well, John, you've never been in the military, therefore you don't get to talk about anything. It's like, well, now we're just holding letters next to your title over me, right? It's like, that's not fun. That's waste.
But I don't know enough to where I can give advice. I'm not at the level that someone like Brantley Merriam is. I can't really put out a video talking.
But here's the thing. I want to get down to this point. You can give me useful information without having fired a shot through whatever it is that you're talking about, right? There are plenty of videos out there of somebody who is he gets something out of a box. Like I think it happened, unfortunately, with the Desert Tech Wolverine. And he was like just checking out the barrel, taking it out, looking at it and whatnot. And like the gas blocker, there was something just mechanically wrong with it. That's good information to have, because you can tell me that the newly launched Desert Tech Wolverine maybe doesn't have the best quality control process out there. Without firing a single round, you have transferred usable information into my brain. Thank you, sir. Let's see. Legion Armament for $5 says, I like the dudes at Tacticon, but not their products, and like your reviews / callouts, and I appreciate the humility. That's a W on its own. That is actually funny, because you can like the dudes, not their products, and then you like me, but maybe not my, or like, there's like an inverse there that comes together, right? I don't watch Tacticon's content, but I know that it's like quote unquote high quality, entertaining type stuff. And yeah, so everybody likes who they like. That's fine. Quantum Efficiency for $10. Sorry, thank you, sir. Says match shooters get their info on equipment at matches. Making a 40-minute rant about YouTube is weird. If you're still in chat, work on your craft, my guy. What gun tubers do shouldn't bother you this much. I agree. If your focus, like Quantum is a good shooter, he's a hand loader, he does all this different stuff. Follow him on the Discord. He will absolutely ask or answer anything that you want to ask him about, all that sort of stuff. Very good, right? He has a very specific use case that he's good at, right? The same thing. If you're a competition shooter, you want to get better at that sort of thing. Why do you care about somebody's night vision performance? Why do you care about, me shooting a 14.5-inch 6.5 Creed out to 1,200 yards, right? That is not applicable to you in your competition shooting. So I don't know why coming after people for doing that makes any sense. Now, obviously, he's in the chat talking about how he should have been more precise. We all agree. Thank you for the $10, Quantum. Jedediah is back for $4.99, says, I feel like Kit Badger takes a fantastic stance when it comes to practical matches. Kit Badger does a lot of match footage, right? He'll record his matches. He'll go over his gear and them, how they performed, all useful type things. And he'll go over training classes. He'll do training class reviews. He'll do the loadouts for all of it, all that sort of good stuff. I think he provides some really good, straight information. It's not really, there's some entertainment in there, but it's mostly like straight information, how this did XYZ. And again, he's an honest guy, what appears to be honest. I've had a chat with him in person, met him at SHOT Show last year. Very genuine, down-to-earth guy, and his opinions on gear seems relatively reliable. So just because he's not a pro-level competition shooter doesn't mean he can't speak. What a weird thing to say.
About my setup and whether or not this matters or what is relevant and what is not relevant. I know what I don't know at this point, and I can't talk on any of this shit. That's why I don't really see any reason for me to give reviews of products going on in the future for a while, more than likely, because I'm not sure that I know enough and that it's really a value. And what I really think is that it just doesn't fucking matter. Like, none of the shit fucking matters. You don't need to spend money on gear, all this gear and all this equipment.
Again, we keep going around in circles and circles here, but yeah, you do not need to go out and spend millions of dollars, thousands of dollars on different gear. There is some things that you need though, right? Because you can't say you don't need any gear, right? Because you're shooting with gear, right? And I imagine at some point you took advice from people shooting up with gear, right? So, but again, there is that element that we agree with where that it shouldn't just be consumery crap, right? Where you're just watching videos to buy a new product because you think it's cool. You never get good. You never learn how to use it. All that is just a waste of money. It's paperweights. It's flex pieces. It's lame. It's gear career stuff.
And you can just train and practice and let the training and the practice dictate whether or not you experiment and try new things. Like, let that be the reason you grow and develop. Like, let there actually be a stimulus behind it instead of fucking fantasy and ideas that other people come up in their own head. That way they can make a YouTube video to get fucking subscribers or get fucking AdSense or promote, sponsors. When Hop went on his little,
Sorry, I'm looking for Mike Bridges says, dude literally said, I know what I don't know. No, that's not the right one. Sorry. I was going to make fun of someone else. Where'd he go? Did he pull it? Did you pull your comment? Where did it go? Gosh dang it. That guy pulled his comment. I was going to respond to it and he deleted it. I was going to make fun of somebody in the chat, but they deleted their own comment.
Hop went on his tangent to Pranko about how people that don't have gear need to have some sort of frame of reference for what gear to get to then get that gear. And like, that is what matters, is like they need something. And that's why like his content that people like him put out there is good, is because when people don't know anything, they have nothing to go off of. Having something for what is good or what is bad is useful for them to go and get. And I think that's actually wrong. I think they don't actually need the gear. They don't need the gear at all. They don't need packs. They don't need go bags. They don't need all this prepper shit. They don't need plate carriers.
Unless you happen to be affected by a natural disaster and have to get you and your family out of somewhere in a hurry. My dude, what are you talking about? I think you're just wrong all the way around, sir. My dude. Jedediah Williams says, can we watch the last 5 minutes in peace, then rewind and listen to your take? I mean, if you want to watch the video in entirety on its own, unsped up, because remember, this is sped up and then the footage is altered a little bit so that it passes YouTube and I don't get in trouble for showing off guns on stream. But yeah, I'd rather just talk about it as we go. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. So I don't agree with this take either. So Autonomous comes in and he says, the point I was trying to make is that you can get good advice just as easily as bad advice, and going and just doing it yourself will give you a better result. I disagree, because if I don't know anything and I walk into a gun store and ask a guy, hey, what should I get? Bro, if he's a boomer, I have no idea what sort of recommendation I'm going to get. The only way to find good information is to find trusted sources. How do we find trusted sources? You know, you can say it's BraxFacts, it's the regular guy training, it's XYZ, and you can find these people that the community kind of holistically views as not correct on everything, not perfect, but as reliable purveyors of good information. And we could be like, you can look at these guys' videos and check them out. You know, maybe don't watch a Johnny Q video. Maybe don't watch name your bad reviewer out there, right? So there are important ways to convey good information that the person who knows nothing should have the ability to find by putting out more good information than bad information. Of course, people can still find bad information. Of course. But just going out there and buying something random, like that's just rolling the freaking lottery or playing Russian roulette, maybe literally, with whatever you end up buying, right? Well, imagine some boomers like, you know what? 320, best gun ever made. Here you go, son. Like, or you get the other type of guy who's like, you know what? Taurus, super reliable, never had an issue. I've owned 54 and never shot any of them, right? So I think that you should seek out good information, and that will help you. Because, I mean, guns aren't that complicated, right? Cars are much more complicated, and they're much more expensive. So maybe before going and spending $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000, you should figure out what you're going to buy first, read reviews, all sorts of stuff. You, the buyer, the consumer, need to be intelligent and seek out good information sources. I am glad that those good information sources exist. I would not recommend just picking a gun at random and buying it. That I would not recommend doing that. Richard says, I still don't believe Johnny Q is even real. That's right. He might be just a very high-level AI out in the wild.
They don't need these fucking battle belts. They don't need these rifles set up in these fucking ways. They don't actually need this fucking gear. What they need is to go and do something that would actually stimulate the need for that gear. And then they make that decision based on experience. Otherwise, it's just dudes with like a...
Well, but you got to remember, Atan, you're talking about flat range shooting only, right? So... it's like if you go to the flat range and you shoot a bunch and you'll figure out what's better for competition use. It's like, that's not everybody's use case. That's not what the Second Amendment is about. I'm glad that these competitions exist. I wish more people would do them. You should go out and practice and train and do all this stuff. I'm going to be doing more as well. You know, all good there, but that's not everybody's use case, and it doesn't have to be everybody's use case.
Practical checklist of things they want to have for fantasy, because in the last 7 years, I have cultivated a lot of very good, very durable equipment. I've basically never cheaped out on anything in my entire career of shooting. And I've got maybe like $10,000 worth of shit I don't use lying around that I need to sell. It got used.
He did sell me his AK. I do actually have his AK over there.
Heavily, and it's never going to be touched again, because competition changed everything. It showed me what actually mattered and what I actually needed, and the rest of it is dead weight. That's
so. I have heard this, Atan. I do want you to respond to some of this stuff, right? Because this has been floating around. BrassFact says some of these arguments feel very closeted, anti-2A, and so Atan, I would like you to clarify your stance on 2A. And who's able to buy what for what purpose. Because some of it does seem a little strange coming from a gun guy.
I think largely what Pranka's issue, and I'm just speaking for someone else, you might disagree with that. And maybe people don't like the fact that I'm the one saying this instead of him, but like, people don't just
No, to be clear, we didn't like it when Matt said it either, just to be clear.
Need the gear because it's what like infantry units have. So they have their own checklist based on
That's true. Primary and secondary comes in and he says, I have a 3A vest that I wear daily for work. I guess I don't need that because he doesn't need one. You know what, Matt? You can't even tell me how good that vest is, how comfortable it is, because you haven't shot it in competition. Or maybe you have, actually. I don't know. So I was just speaking out of ignorance. Sorry. Didn't mean to put that on you, but metaphorically, of course.
Off that, or it's what SWAT or what law enforcement units departments have. So they need these things too. Like, we don't need any of it. We're not going to be.
Brother, the whole point of the Second Amendment is to have military parity with the police and military, right? We should be on an equal playing field. Well-regulated militia. If you want to talk about what Lucas is going to be talking about soon, is like having like access to all of this high-end gear. I think that is a very important aspect. The Second Amendment is not only for shooting holes in paper as fast as you can on a flat range, right? Just that.
In like an open fucking conflict, more than likely, we're not going to be battling it out. There aren't going to be fucking tanks rolling into cities. We're not going to have dudes and fucking ghillie suits and in camo running up in the fucking hills with 18-inch rifles and Mark 12s, fighting it out with like fucking activated National Guard that have turned against the American population. Like, we don't need none of this fucking shit, because the chances of us fighting like that are incredibly fucking slim.
Who cares if the chances are low, but never zero, right? And I mean, we've talked about this before many, many times. I mean, this is old rhetoric at this point. Again, it's the need argument. You don't need plate carriers and armored vehicles and just stuff. That's a waste, bro. You don't need that. Come on, man. It's like, nah, how about I do, though? Why not? Just in case. You never know. You never know.
Damn near impossible. Like, running away from cities and learning to be dangerous in the mountains, there's really no indication that that's how that's going to go at all.
Except Summer of Love riots, except natural disasters, except whatever it may be for you personally, when protesters are beating in the windows of your car because you're trapped on the freeway with your little kids in the back. Things might go sideways sometimes. What do they say? Sometimes things just go bad.
And if you do, you might just get caught by a thermal drone and get blown the fuck up. Like, who knows?
But I thought we didn't need to talk about gear, but a thermal drone is a cool piece of kit. Maybe we should look into that.
How dangerous or how wild things could get if there was conflict of that level. So you end up with just a bunch of fucking equipment that lies around, and maybe on like a weekend or something, you go for a fucking ruck and on a mountain hike somewhere, or, maybe you do your rifle shooting at like 50 yards.
But that's fantastic. Yeah, excellent, guys. Please do that. Please get out in the weekend and go hike with a ruck on. Heck yeah. If you have local guys in your area, once a month, once every other month, maybe do some group activities together, right? Maybe be part of a community with a higher purpose. Maybe do go out and shoot your rifle at 50 to 150 yards when you got time. Because again, like, I know, like, there's people watching this stream right now that are truck drivers that work 70, 80 hours a week, that provide for their kids. They aren't going to go and spend 10 grand on ammo and different stuff. But guess what they will do? They'll go out, they'll shoot in the weekend, they'll go on a hike, they'll do things like that. So heck yeah, you keep going, sir.
Like, you don't need to do any of that shit. If you want to learn how to use the stuff and be good to use the stuff, spend your money on ammunition, a basic rifle build that is just reliable, which would be the most important fact, is that it just fucking runs well. And just go do matches and learn shit from there.
Ah, my gosh. So again, I have to drive 2 to 3 hours to get to a match. Now, for me, it's easier, right? Because I just quit my main job. So I'm just doing this thing right now, filming videos for different people. That's my job now. So now I have the free time to go do matches, right? If you live in an unpopulated area and you have, family and other business needs that require your time, guess what? You're not going to need to shoot a match. You're not going to have the ability even to shoot a match every week, every other week, whatnot, right? And matches are not an efficient use of time. Practice is. The match is the check, which you can do quarterly, you can do biannually, whatever it may be. But the practice is the important part. How do you learn how to practice? Go watch some great videos by Ben Steger, by all these other truly top level shooters and whatnot. And you can figure out how to train, get your training in, get your practice in. And then if you want to, if you have the ability, you probably should try and run some matches, right? That being your prioritization is probably not an efficient use of money and time, especially if you have wife, kids, family, and other responsibilities.
That's really all you need to do. And that'll teach you and show you everything that you need, and you will get way better than everyone else. And as you learn things and as you make decisions, you have more money in the long term to do other stuff, like go to major matches, go to...
A regular guy training says, focus. Why do you want me on here? You know what I'm going to say. Well, so regular guy training, also, I'll shout him out because he's in the chat, right? If you go onto his Patreon for $49 a month, if you're local to him, you can come out and train with him as much as you want for the low cost of $50 a month. And that is cheaper than any training class I know of. Because you can do 4 a month or something, right? I think the only one that's more is your vehicle classes, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, the reason I would want you on here, sir, is so that you can say exactly what you're going to say, right? Because that's what I would have anyone on. If I have Matt Prank on again, which planning on having him on again, I want him to say exactly what he's going to say, and we can discuss, right? That's the entire point. Guns blazing as hard as you can. That's what we want. That's what she said. Moving on.
Bigger matches.
Yeah.
I guess that covers just about everything I wanted to talk about. Later.
Yeah, so Atan, I think honestly, there was probably 8 minutes or 10 minutes in there that if you cut out a lot of the bad arguments, I think that there is 8 to 10 minutes of a video in there. Honestly, I think so. And if you script it out, it might even be shorter than that. So that's what I would recommend doing. So you're a good shooter. I hope that you get better at shooting. I would question your own opinions. See if they hold out. If you reason them out and they're good to go, then press on. But maybe take some of the feedback, be constructive about it, and yeah, we'll chat more, I'm sure. I'm sure you'll have more time to process everything, and we'll talk more about it later. But best of luck, and I hope you do well in your future competitions, sir. All right. Brassvac says that Hop's mom is nice, which I'm sure that she is a very nice lady. Jim Molnar says, this discussion just makes me miss Paul Harrell more. Indeed. Indeed, good sir. The thing about Americans not knowing how to run rifles was dumb, and Autonomous says that I will. Yeah. Godspeed, sir. All right. So nobody here wants to watch me talk about the TFB TV stuff 2.5 hours into the stream, because my voice is already gone, so I can't do it. I know Brass wanted me to talk about it for a little bit, but maybe we'll save that for tomorrow. We'll just do it. No, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. I got a dinner at noon, and then I'm going out to the park to look at lights with my wife and kids after that. So probably no stream tomorrow. Maybe Friday night when I get back from shooting, because I go out into the woods and I shoot my stuff with night vision goggles on, and I do a bunch of testing of random stuff, which I'm allowed to do. Okay, I'll do it. I'm allowed to do it. So, yeah. Maybe I just have a super stream of gun slap. Guys, it's 11:30 here, and I have a deadlift high-intensity workout to do. You guys are going to kill me. Just do it. Fuck, these guys are miserable. TFB measured permanent. Okay, fine. We'll do it. This one here will be less obnoxious, maybe? I don't know. I have no idea. Anyways, I don't know where to go. TFB TV bad video. That is what I entitled it. All right, but before we get into that, there are some super chats. Magni Dude for $5. Thank you very much, sir. Says, I did 7 tours in Fallujah. Can I start training and buying gear now? That doesn't sound like a flat range pedigree to me, sir. So I'm sorry. Maybe someday you'll have the ability to do so, but not yet. Not yet. BVH Nightmare for $2 says, we need to remember we can learn from everyone. I agree in multiple ways, right? So which is why sometimes it's nice to talk about people or to people that have bad takes, and we can kind of iron them out, right? And kind of see what's actually good in there, sift through it, metaphorically, of course. And we can actually kind of figure out what's good and what's bad. So you definitely can learn things from everybody. Listen, I think we'll talk about this with Matt more, but we'll talk about more tactical side of things, and we'll talk about the hard skills side of things, and if there's a place for both, which personally I think there is, but I don't know anything, so we will discuss. Stealth for $10 says, when I make my own gear, it's nice to see examples of others, of other stuff, especially high-end gear to take from. I use my pack for hiking, gardening, carrying things. I can use my split rig I built for those too. That's cool, man. Do you make your own nylon products? That's awesome. That's a good skill to have. Actually being able to make your own stuff. For $1.99, Jedediah says, that's just wishful thinking. Low, yes. Never zero. Never zero. In fact, historically, on a long enough time frame, always yes. Edward Summers, 556, thank you very much, sir, says, maybe if he watched a few gear reviews, he wouldn't have spent $10,000 on gear he doesn't use. Well, like that's actually a relatively good point, because we all start at somewhere, right? If we go back to the to that pyramid that I had up earlier, we all start getting into it and we kind of just buy stuff, right? A lot of us do anyways, right? We buy more stuff than we have skill to actually use. So it's good to have people who are like, prioritize what you want. Some gear is good. You don't need everything, but you do need some stuff, and then get training. And then as your training expands, you can expand your gear and so on and so forth, and you want your skills to match what you have. Because again, we know those people that have $10,000 worth of gear and they don't know how to use any of it. So it's kind of worthless. It might as well be paperweights. Call me Dave for $9.99. Thank you very much, sir. He says, from someone who has spent hundreds of dollars on shitty holsters and guns, I wish I found an honest source of information to turn to before purchases. I wouldn't have made 70% of those purchases. Yeah, and the more good information we can put out there, the better, right? The entertainment guys, they can have their entertainment. The competition guys, they can have their competition. And then good, useful gear reviewers and concept guys, we can have those guys as well. And the more the better. The more good information, the better. Bush for $4.99 says, I don't know what either of you are talk about. My Bear AK with a sling and my single action 45 long Colt with a Simmons shot dot will outperform anything. No. But thank you for the $4.99, sir. I appreciate it. Nate Train for $4.99 says, if the competition is the most insufferable personality, this guy is an ultimate. Okay, I see what you're saying now. If the competition is most insufferable personality, this guy is an ultimate grandmaster. I think, honestly, Atan, I think it was just angry, right? Because if you look at somebody like Matt Pranka, all right, Matt, who gets disrespected and clowned on by a bunch of YouTubers and chatters, that can make you upset if that's your guy, right? I made a lot of people upset talking about Garanthem, and we're not done yet. So I get it. People are mad. They make responses. Just is what it is. But again, when you do them publicly, then people are going to download your video and respond to it. Moving on, we talk about TFB TV and the Magpul Zev abomination. We're 20 seconds into a gun video and I haven't seen a gun yet. But anyways, this video is edited and voiced over by Nick at TFB TV, which obviously Hop is on one of those guys as well. And the editing is painful. It is Zoomer editing. It is literally like you can time it. 2.5 seconds cut, 2.5 seconds cut, 2.5 seconds zoom in on a cut. The cuts are mid-sentence, right? It's like, it's retention editing, and I hate it. But moving on.
Welcome to TFB TV. I'm back. I was recently invited.
You see what I'm saying, though? It's like a word, a sentence, cut, sentence, more cuts. Yeah, and the background music. Listen, I like classic video game, not even classic, sorry, like mid 2000s video game soundtracks, right? That's my thing. If somebody likes the lo-fi slop stuff, not my thing, but oh well.
Into a very exciting product launch. After nearly 20 years, the ZEV Magpul FDC and FDP.
At the heart of this thing is their steel frame.
So this is kind of, I hate the format. I hate the way this is done. I hate that I don't have any information and I'm 30 seconds into the video. You know, like I do intros, right? Most people just skip them, right? Most people click to 90 seconds and that's where I start talking, right? 100%. You don't want to see an intro? Perfect. I feel like videos like this need to start out, if you're not going to do like the shooting intro and show me what the thing does, like please just talk about it. Because there is a lot of interesting history with this product. But instead, now we have a fire control unit, which is what this thing is based off of. It's based off of a ZEV fire control unit with a safety on it rather than just a, Glock trigger bar, because you can't have that with a folding design, but we'll get into it.
ZEV took the frame from their OZ9, chopped off the Picatinny rail, added a manual safety, and made some other small changes. The necessity for a folding trigger meant that the traditional blade safety was not possible.
We still have our integral locking block.
This is a weird place to start the video. Like I want to like actually see the thing and tell me what it is. Like, is this a 9mm carbine? Is this a blowback? Is this a Browning tilting action? Like, what is the thing? Instead, I'm staring at a fire control unit, right?
We're still using all the same trigger parts. Field strip on these is very simple. Drop your top cover off. You just got to pull this pin out, point it in the safe direction.
Guys, like,
still using all the same trigger parts. Field strip on these is very simple.
See, there's a cut. Why was there a cut? He was about to take it off. Just let me see him take it off. But there's literally a cut every 2.5 to 3 seconds. Yeah. The Reticle says this was supposed to be the folding SMG from Ghost in the Shell and Modern Warfare 3 as the FMG9. And instead, it's a Glock in a shell. It's a Glock in a plastic case, guys. Like, ouch.
Pop your top cover off. You just got to pull this pin out, point it in the safe direction, and then you can see your...
Like, I can't even see what he's talking about. What are you talking about? It's out of frame. Was he not watching?
Pop your top cover off. You just got to pull this pin out, point it in the safe direction.
I can't even see the thing.
You can see your slide lock lever right
here.
B-roll
of the gun. That's cool. Now I can see it.
The rest is pretty simple. So what about deployment?
Well, so this is the interesting, like that 1 second shot or 2 second shot. It's a Glock slide with a long barrel on a Glock FCU inside of a plastic shell that folds, right? This is the SIG 320 chassis with way more extra steps. Yeah, exactly. Somebody says now you have a bigger pistol. There's something to the PDW concept there and being portable and being concealable while not being as big as like a PCC. Sure. Right. But you can just do that with a simple like folding brace on a Glock or the 320 chassis or the 365 chassis or whatever it ends up being. Jack Johnson says, isn't it against TOS to disassemble guns on YouTube? There is no TOS on YouTube. It's not real. It can't hurt you. It doesn't exist. People talk about it, but it's not real.
The rest is pretty simple. So what about deployment?
Finger right there on your...
I feel like that's how you open the video, right? It was like, oh, well, it's the folding gun from 2004. That's what I want.
The rest is pretty simple. So what about deployment?
Finger right there on your charging handle. Something like that. Then you've got...
Now, the footage actually does look better than what I'm showing you because I also blurred this footage. Just because live streams and guns are funky.
Your hand right here.
These are safe to carry with a round in the chamber, but while we were learning, we were running with an empty chamber and had to charge this wicked little shooter.
If I can give a couple pro tips too, just real quick.
This is Drake.
And now we're on to something else entirely. Like, geez Louise. Like, this is literal Zoomer retention, which what you should have done was just put Subway Surfers like right there in the right hand third, right? And then just let the video play out on the left side, right? If you want to do true Zoomer retention, true TikTok retention, just do that. It's way simpler, guys.
Anybody have any questions?
You may or may
I have so many questions, and none of them are going to be answered in this video, sir. Yes, exactly. This thing is 15 years too late. This was cool in 2008. T-Rex arms, Lucas is absolutely correct. It's gay. So is the music and the beard. But we move on.
not recognize him from the 2008 product launch.
That was so cool, right? 2008. You don't have any of these other PDWs out. You have it's in video. You even have the ACR in the background. Look, it's back then it was the Magpul Masada. You have the Magpul Masada in the background. You have the whatever they called it back then. Like, oh, this is fantastic. It's in video games. It's in all sorts of stuff. Like, this is what we want. Fast forward almost 2 decades, and we have a clock in a shell. No, this video is bad. This video is very bad, sir. Yes, Akimbo. Akimbo in Modern Warfare 3 pre-patch, because they patched it in Modern Warfare 3 to when you had 2 of them Akimbo, the spread was like way further, because for a while it was like the noob combo.
Video for the FMG9. Back to the FD.
Well, actually, talking about Lucas. Lucas was streaming for like 8 hours today on Twitch and X, because they have their Black Friday sale going on now, I think. And they were doing question and answer, talking about gear and giving out great information. Kind of topical, I guess.
DC.
The very first step you should be doing is folding that grip, collapsing that grip out of the way, right?
Folding the gun was awkward at first, but breaking the grip, then folding the stock made things run much smoother. I pinched my hand once or twice, and deployment wasn't always perfect, but with practice, we all got pretty fast.
Now, my question to you is, look at this box, and then look at the 365 or the 320 with the folded brace. It's way more compact than that. So the brief gun case, while cool at the time, it's no longer cool in 2024, right? Going into 2025. Gear and training, right? A mix of both. Sounds good. Maybe.
The charging handle is ambidextrous and folds out of the way. It's also the front of that charging handle that you press to unfold the gun. The charging handles were strong. I didn't feel like I was going to break them. They are small, though, which is a necessity for this specific use case. As I mentioned, there's no trigger safety. Means a long, I didn't feel like I was going to break them. They are.
Isn't there something weird about seeing is this an NX8 or an ATACR on a Glock, essentially? Isn't there something just wrong
small,
about
though,
that?
Which is a necessity for this specific use case. As I mentioned, there's no trigger safety, which means a manual safety is required. The safety is tucked away to reduce snag points. I do have to break my grip to activate and deactivate it, but really it's not that big a deal. That's the case for most long guns that I shoot. I did see a few people using their support hand to deactivate the safety, which worked fine. But once you get the FDC going,
I feel like that's slow, right? Because most other guns you're probably carrying around in the chamber, so you don't need to rack. I mean, I guess it's depending on situation and whatnot, but it's like unfold, hope you do it correctly, safety, rack. Now we can get it into battle. Now we can shoot, right?
rips.
Ooh, there was like 4 edits in 1 second. Well, okay, so he literally missed half the shots there. You can't tell me that the thing rips and it's amazing and then miss half your shots in the very next frame that you're shooting, right? Yeah, it's an NX8 on a Glock. It's hilarious.
The FDC wasn't great just as a close-range weapon. More precise.
But do you hear how it's all great, positive, fluff piece stuff? Like, What is great about it? Like, it's a Glock in a plastic shell. Like, I have actually a plastic shell kit over here for a Glock, which is essentially the same thing, but like 1/10 the cost.
Shots were also possible. These targets were about 30, 40 yards away, so why not try a little farther? It seemed like a waste not to stretch the legs of this little viper. Wait, snakes don't have legs. We were able to repeatedly hit full-size and reduced-size steel out to 200 yards. Scoped, red dotted, ironed.
But you see how it is? Like, this is painful, right? It's like a couple sentences at most. Slow motion B-roll, regular speed B-roll, cut, another sentence with like 4 cuts in it, and then back to B-roll. And like, the song has changed, I think, 4 times. I think we're 4 minutes into the video, and the background music has swapped 4 times. Also, regular guy training comes in for $10. Thank you very much, sir. And he says, just finished testing for body armor. I don't need for its video this week, and a 6,000 round review of a BRN4, which I need to get one of those. I don't know how to use next week for the losers that don't matter or whatever. Yeah, exactly. I can't believe you wasted 6,000 rounds testing out, product to give to the people for free. I can't believe you wasted your time like that, sir. I feel very bad for you.
The FDC and FDP use a 7-inch barrel. We were shooting 147 grain FMJs. I'm really curious.
Well, so to be clear, Deadweight says TFB is going full suit. No, because it's a different guy. Like this Nick guy. I don't know. Never talked to him. Never met him. He did the editing. He did the filming. It's his script. That's what happens when you have contributors, right? So I contribute to the Gun.Deals channel, but if Beyond Seclusion is on there doing one of his videos, right? I didn't do that, guys. That wasn't me, right? So I don't blame James or Hop for this.
Curious to see how this would perform with some lighter, faster rounds, maybe like the G9 EHPs. Now, these are not final production guns, and it was very cool to be part of the development process as the engineers were there taking notes and keeping track of rounds. So why did it take so long to come out?
We are on the 5th song change at 4 minutes and 34 seconds.
While the public had been waiting for this to be released for almost 20 years, the perspective of Magpul was different. That 2008 launch was really just Magpul showing off. There was no interest in producing a full firearm. Lessons were learned from projects like the Masada. So the idea...
Dude, that is true, though. Magpul has come up with some of the best designs to hand them off to the worst people. Right? The Masada, which was like, there was the Remington Defense, which is pretty cool. Magnesium lower, cool. That never happened. And then the Bushmaster, got it. Yeah, that died. And then now they're handing this off to Zev, and they're just making some of the plastic stuff with it. So we'll see how that works. Does it fit in a prison wallet? Depends on the prisoner.
Just sat on a shelf. It wasn't until Zev saw the opportunity to put their OZ9 frame into this platform that the project was really resurrected. So who is this for? The FDC and the FDP would be a great option for honestly a lot of people. Executive protection professionals, law enforcement, or even just your average soccer mom watching.
Would it be great for those people though? Like, how would you deploy this in a police role? Secret Service, you already have better guns that have been around for longer that do it. It's like, why would you take a Glock that folds? I feel like there's so many different things you would go with before this. So when you say things like great, like that should have some worth. That should have some weight behind it. It can't just be, oh, this is great. Why? Because they flew you out there and you could hang out with some of the guys for a while? Like, what actually makes it great?
Walking her dog down the street. The number one purpose, as far as I see it, is discretion. Whether you're a professional who needs a reliable, quick to deploy firearm in a hostile environment, or you're just a mom and on-body carry doesn't really work for you, you could easily have this stored in a bag, but that's just talking about the versatility of the folding gun. The folks at Zev and Magpul both expressed their interest in continuing this line into a full family of FDC, FDP firearms.
So we're going to get like non-folding 16-inch versions of this, which is like the only purpose that this would possibly serve would be as that small PDW type system, if it's reliable, if it can be deployed quickly, if it's, you know, price competitive with other good options, because you have things like the GHM9 and then, well, exactly. And GB Gun says, is it more discreet than a basic handgun? No. And so now this is a gear queer thing. Okay. So listen, if you buy a $500 handgun of your choice and spend that extra $1,000 on training and ammo, then you are not going to need to buy something like this. Is this going to perform a little bit better than a handgun in some scenarios? Yes, absolutely. But like for the concealed carry / discreet role, like just get a nice handgun and some training, you'll be fine.
This could even include a version with a fixed stock.
Yeah,
Additionally,
like
we were able to use some aluminum carry handles produced by Zev. These were prototypes.
To fix the ergonomics, we ruined the purpose of the gun. Now you can't fold it anymore, but now you can shoot it better.
But they're cut, allowing you to countersink and aim point acro.
We just talked about the acro too, how it's probably not the dot you should be buying for like $600 or $700, right? And that's the thing with these PDW type guns with the flat rails, you actually do need like comfortably like a 2-inch riser, 2.2, something like that, to use them comfortably. Yes, it does and it will.
Got it.
See, so like the top rail here on the right with the acro and the end gall, like there is a use case for these tiny PDW style weapons that have full capabilities, white light, IR, you know, red dot, whatever you want. There is an application for them, but it is so niche, and there's probably already better options for it on the market than just a Glock in a shell. It's just a Glock in a shell. Brassfax is going to wake up and get back on the stream. He's like, what are you talking about PDWs for? I predict that Brassfax will review it, calling it right now. He's going to review it, and he's going to say that it is not as good as other PDWs on the market. If a good PDW even exists.
This is my preference, but the irons were pretty easy to work with too. You want to know how it shoots under nods?
Brother, it shoots like anything under nods. You point the laser and you pull the trigger, sir. That's the thing. Like, I love the nods discussion when it comes to shooting under nods. If you're shooting active, it's just point the laser on the target and pull the trigger, right? Know your switchology, know your switches. You're probably going to be fine. It shoots the same.
I'd say just fine.
God, it's like he cuts back for 3 words, you know, and then it's back to this.
I got to be honest with you. Before getting behind the FDC,
were you not honest with me before, sir? I'm feeling like that might be the case.
I would have laughed at the idea of a fixed stock variant. The whole point is it's a folding gun, right?
Correct.
The folding is very cool and has some real practical purpose. Unfolded, the overall length is 20 inches, and the whole thing weighs less than 3.5 pounds. A handy, lightweight, and reliable PCC could be a very quick firearm to deploy either in competition or in some more serious roles. Folding and discretion aside, the FDP and FTC are just really fun PCCs. I can't wait to run this thing in a local PCC match. Or have the fixed stock variant strapped to my chest, walking through the mountains. The possibilities are endless. Price-wise, you're looking at about $1,600 MSRP. As far as availability, launch is expected in Q1 of 2025.
I think I missed a song change somewhere in there, but yeah, GB Gun says, imagine what editing the timeline of this video must have looked like. Maybe he got a new computer and wanted to push it. I mean, it's just I mean, I don't think the timeline would really look that crazy, but the amount of cuts in it, like, I don't know what my average video is, maybe like 50, 60 cuts in a video, but this might be that in a minute.
I want to thank Zev, Magpul, Silencer Co., and the two ladies who kept us fed for 3 days. I love what I do, but what I...
Well, so now here is the rub, right? Did at any point he mentioned, except for right now, like throughout this entire video, this is basically at the end, that he got to go out here for 3 days, expenses paid, ? We don't know. To hang out with all of these guys, and do you think that that positively influences him to talk about the product, right? Even if he's not paid, right, to do it, it does seem a little suspicious,
really love is the community. I shared a room with giants in the industry, and it felt...
Well, see, that's the thing. A lot of these people are like, oh, I got to go to these places. I got to hang out with these dudes. I am so cool. And all this stuff is amazing. And you get it out in the real world, like Wadagear says, this guy lives in a bubble, and you're like, well, that's cool that you got to have these experiences, but your $1,600 piece of plastic is garbage.
No different than chatting with the boys at a local match. I'd also like to thank our sponsors for their continued support, and an extra thank you to all of you watching. So head over to our Subscribestar or Patreon to keep the goodies coming. Stay safe. We'll see you around.
They should have cut that last part out. If you like this video, keep watching. Everybody unsubscribes, right? Don't do it. Now, before we get out of here, I do want to show you the comments on this video, because the comments on this video are really good. So where did I put it? Right here. TFB TV. I had to think about that for way too long. Like, how do you spell TFB TV? Oh, wait. All right.
Here, pull your slide.
All right, let me full screen this and then get rid of that. Pull this up here so I can show you guys the comments on this, because the comments make it all worthwhile. All right. Hey, that's me. I'm live. That's actually funny. So can I make this smaller so that it's more... There we go. Okay, that's better. Okay, let's see. KG370 says, I guess TFB TV didn't learn when we all said we hated this new format of video. Yeah, and you can see I've already liked a lot of these comments. This guy says, this is the lowest energy Shia LaBeouf video ever. This guy reminds me of someone who loves IPAs. Let's talk about the blank. 1 minute of B-roll. It's good. Another 2 minutes of B-roll. Yes. Magpul is excited to announce that the FMG9 is finally out. Shipping begins summer 2049. Hey, I know that reference. Very nice. Now let's see Hop's review. This guy says, this is the biggest one. I was expecting some in-depth info and honest review of pros and cons. Got an advertisement instead. Yep. Over 20 years in development for 1600 plus and 1600 plus for a gun with a cover. Okay, Keltec, you have 6 months to make a polymer version for under $600. Yep, Wall Layman says the edits and cuts on this were weird and also felt like an ad. 2012 called, they want their video back. When will this never come to market? Hey, Cutlass was in the chat. Says, yeah, this solves the age-old question of how a soccer mom can EDC an SBR off body. It's about time somebody addresses the real issues. The comments on that video are very good. I think you guys should go take a look. All right, there are 2 more super chats. Logan sucks at shooting for $5. Thank you very much, sir. I can't edit worth a damn, but I genuinely think I could have done a better job than this. You know what's funny is I should have cut out everything except for the talking, and I think it would have been 2.5 minutes. That is the information you got. 2.5 minutes. That's the amount of actual content in that video. Which again, when we're talking about bad reviewers, gun slop, all of this stuff, like, I'm here for it. Let's talk about it. Let's say why. Let's say, hey, what needs to be better? All that sort of stuff. Get rid of the shilling, get rid of the liars, get rid of the advertisements masquerading as reviews. Let's do it. Let's do it. But then why do we pick on somebody who's like actually putting out good content? And it's like, this feels like we're just eating our own instead of actually getting rid of the bad actors, which we should be doing. And Bush for $1.99. Thank you very much, sir. Says happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. I agree. I do want to thank everybody for sticking around, for hanging out, for having a great time. 3-hour stream. You guys made me go an extra 30 minutes. No, the U-Haul boxes are still there. You just can't see it. So there's one covered up in the back there that has stuff on it. And then the other one's on the floor there, or there. See, they're there. They're there. But yeah, it's fitting. I have a Knights SR15 and U-Haul boxes on the floor because I got my priorities straight. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the support. You guys are absolutely amazing. And I have the best fans out there. So I appreciate you guys watching my lowly gear reviews and concept pieces with no pedigree whatsoever, with no A or M next to my name. And you guys, for some reason, stick around 3 hours into a live stream. And I greatly appreciate it. So with all of that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful night and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Spend some time with the fam and do what's actually important, which is competition. I mean, spending time with your family and being thankful, because we do live in a good time as of right now. And let's hope things get better. So good night, gentlemen.
I've honestly stayed quiet about everything for a while just because of, like, you know, who the fuck is gonna believe me? He's a good guy. He's fantastic. Like, I'll